Hello guys, welcome to Fictional Vortex. So in this video, we will see, what if Naruto was the son of the Great Red and the Ouroboros dragon, Naruto x Ophis x Yasaka, High School DxD. If you enjoy these kinds of stories, don't forget to show us some love by hitting the like button and subscribing to the channel. Your support means the world to us. Now, let's start the story. Chapter 1. Crimson Dawn. The Dragon's Son. The dimensional tear ripped through reality with the subtlety of a paper bomb. See. Crimson lightning crackling across the twilight sky as space itself seemed to scream in protest. Naruto Uzumaki, hero of the Fourth Great Ninja War, fell through the fracture between worlds with chakra flaring wildly around his body, a corona of gold and azure that fought against the crimson energy engulfing him. His final memory had been simple enough, standing atop the Hokage monument, gazing out at the rebuilt Konoha while contemplating Kakashi's upcoming inauguration as the sixth Hokage. Then came the sensation, a pulling from somewhere deep inside his very being, as though something fundamental to his existence had awakened and was calling him elsewhere. The pain hit with breathtaking intensity. Not physical, something deeper. His chakra network burned from within as unfamiliar energy surged through pathways never designed to channel it. Inside his mindscape, Kurama roared in alarm as crimson light flooded even that sacred space. What the hell is happening to me? Naruto gasped, his voice lost in the void between realities. Then darkness. Blessed, painless darkness. Consciousness returned slowly, like wading through chest-deep water. Naruto's eyelids felt impossibly heavy as he forced them open, revealing an unfamiliar canopy of trees silhouetted against a night sky filled with stars arranged in patterns he'd never seen before. You're finally awake. Impressive recovery time, considering the circumstances. The voice came from his right, male, casual yet tinged with analytical curiosity. Naruto's combat instincts flared instantly, his body moving before conscious thought could catch up. He sprang from prone to defensive stance in a fluid motion, kunai materializing in his hand from a seal on his wrist. Easy there, the man said, raising both hands in a placating gesture. He appeared to be in his 30s, with black hair streaked with gold in the front and an easy smile that didn't quite reach his watchful eyes. If I wanted you dead, I'd have made my move while you were doing your Sleeping Beauty impression for the past 6 hours. Naruto's eyes narrowed, senses expanding outward. The forest around them felt wrong. The natural energy that flowed through everything had a different frequency here, vibrating at pitches he'd never encountered. And the stranger, his energy signature was unlike any Naruto had ever felt. Not chakra, something darker, more ancient. Where am I? Who are you? Naruto demanded, not lowering his weapon. The man chuckled. Direct questions. I like that. The name's Azazel, Governor General of the Fallen Angels, though that title's getting a bit complicated these days. He gestured broadly at their surroundings. As for where, that's the interesting question. You're in a forest about 20 miles outside Kuo Town, Japan. Though, I suspect that doesn't mean much to you, considering you literally tore a hole in reality to get here. Naruto processed this information, his mind racing. Japan. He'd studied geography at the Academy, grudgingly, and no such country existed on any map of the elemental nations. Kurama, he whispered internally. You following this? The nine-tailed fox's voice rumbled through his consciousness, uncharacteristically tense. This is wrong, Naruto. The natural energy here, it's familiar somehow, yet distorted. Like a memory from before my creation. Be cautious, this creature isn't human. Not human, huh, Naruto muttered, then addressed Azazel directly. What exactly is a fallen angel? Azazel's eyebrows shot up, genuine surprise crossing his features. Now that's unexpected. Everyone knows what. He stopped abruptly, studying Naruto with renewed intensity. Unless, the dimensional disturbance wasn't just spatial but cross-reality. Fascinating. He spread his arms, and with a sound like rushing wind, 12 jet black wings unfurled from his back, spanning nearly 20 feet across. Does this clarify things? Instead of shock, Naruto simply adjusted his stance. After facing down the 10 tails and Kagaya Otsutsuki, a man with wings barely registered on his weirdness scale. Neat trick. Still doesn't tell me why I'm here or how to get back. Azazel's wings retracted as he burst into genuine laughter. You're either the bravest human I've ever met or something else entirely. His expression grew serious. The energy signature that brought you here was unmistakable, dragon energy of the highest order. Not just any dragon either. What we felt was reminiscent of Great Red himself, the Apocalypse Dragon, with traces of something else equally powerful. A sudden pulse of energy surged through Naruto's body, his skin momentarily gleaming with faint crimson scales before returning to normal. The sensation brought him to one knee, gasping. And there it is again, Azazel observed, keeping his distance. Whatever you are, boy, you've got the attention of powers you can't possibly comprehend. Which means you've got my attention too. He extended a hand. Come with me. I know someone who might have answers about your condition. Naruto hesitated, weighing his options. This world was completely alien, its energy fundamentally different from what he understood. If this fallen angel wanted him dead, he'd have better opportunities later regardless. Fine, he agreed, ignoring the offered hand and rising on his own. But try anything suspicious and you'll learn why. They call me the most unpredictable ninja in my world. Azazel's eyes gleamed with interest. Ninja, now that's a story I'd like to hear. He produced a small object that resembled a paper talisman but glowed with arcane symbols. Hold on to your stomach. Teleportation's disorienting the first time. Before Naruto could protest, the forest dissolved around them in a flash of light. The teleportee, on magic, deposited them in what appeared to be an expansive private study. Bookshelves towered to the ceiling, filled with ancient tomes in languages Naruto couldn't identify. Display cases housed artifacts that pulsed with power, and complex magical circles were etched into the floor beneath an ornate rug. Naruto stumbled slightly but recovered quickly, his shinobi training compensating for the spatial disorientation. Some warning next time, he growled. Most people vomit their first time, Azazel remarked, clearly impressed. Your constitution is remarkable. He moved to an antique cabinet and removed a decanter of amber liquid. Drink. It helps with the residual teleportation sickness. Pass, Naruto replied, already moving around the room, examining the strange artifacts with cautious curiosity. He stopped before a glass case containing what appeared to be a simple kunai, though its 3 prongs and special seal markings made it instantly recognizable. Where did you get this? Azazel approached, swirling his drink thoughtfully. Interesting that you'd be drawn to that particular item. It appeared approximately 17 years ago during a similar dimensional disturbance, smaller than the one that brought you here, but detectable to those who monitor such things. He studied Naruto's reaction carefully. You recognize it. It's a flying thunder god kunai, Naruto said softly. Memories of his father flooding back. Created by the 4th Hokage of Konoha, Minato Namikaze. My father. Understanding dawned in Azazel's eyes. 17 years. Roughly your age, I'd guess. The plot thickens. He set down his glass. I've studied that kunai extensively. The energy signature embedded in its seal is similar to yours, though far less potent. It suggests a connection between our worlds that predates your arrival. Quote, a new voice interrupted them, female, monotone yet somehow resonating with immense power. The connection is older than you realize, Governor of the Fallen. Oath turned to find a young girl standing in the center of the room. She appeared no older than 12, with long black hair reaching her knees and emotionless gray eyes. Her gothic Lolita dress seemed at odds with the aura of immeasurable power that surrounded her, power that made even Azazel tense visibly. Ophis, Azazel greeted cautiously. To what do I owe the honor of the Ouroboros dragon gracing my humble collection? The girl, Ophis, ignored him completely, her unblinking gaze fixed on Naruto. You have returned, earlier than expected, but the boundary was already weakening. Naruto felt Kurama stirring anxiously within him. Naruto, be extremely careful. Whatever this being is, her power dwarfs anything we've encountered, even Kagaya. It's ancient and infinite. You know me? Naruto asked, meeting the girl's unnervingly steady gaze. I know what you are, she replied, approaching with measured steps. Son of the apocalypse and the infinite. The convergence point of opposing forces. She reached out, her small pale hand stopping inches from his chest. Within you, 2 infinities coexist, the power to dream and the power to silence. Great Red and myself. Azazel nearly dropped his glass. Impossible, he whispered. You and Red are fundamental opposites. You seek silence, he embodies dreams. The child would tear itself apart from the contradictory energies. Unless, Ophis continued, still staring at Naruto. A third power stabilized the contradiction. A power from another world entirely. Her hand finally made contact with Naruto's chest, directly over his seal. The 9 fragments of the 10-tailed beast. The chakra entity you call Kurama. Inside Naruto's mindscape, Kurama's 9 tails lashed with agitation. How does she know of me? Of the 10 tails. The knowledge was always there, Ophis stated. Somehow hearing the fox's question. Your world and mine were once connected, long before records began. The sage of 6 paths knew of dragons. We knew of the god tree. Naruto stepped back from her touch, mind reeling with implications. You're saying I'm, what? Part dragon. Not part, Ophis corrected. You are dragon. Born of dragon. Sent away for protect. Ion when your nascent powers threatened to collapse the dimensional gap itself. Azazel had recovered his composure, analytical mind working through possibilities. If what she says is true, you're potentially the most powerful being ever created, a child of the 2 dragon gods themselves, with an additional power source stabilizing what should be an impossible combination. Naruto's patience finally snapped. Enough with the cryptic bullshit. I'm Naruto Uzumaki, son of Minato Namikaze and Kushina Uzumaki. I'm a shinobi of Konohagakure, not whatever the hell you're talking about. The outburst triggered another surge of power. This time, crimson energy erupted from his body, invisible waves, cracking the floor beneath him. Simultaneously, golden chakra flared as Kurama instinctively moved to protect his host from the foreign energy. Fascinating, Azazel murmured, backing away. The dragon power and this chakra are fighting for dominance. They are not fighting, Ophis stated flatly. They are remembering how to coexist. She approached Naruto again, unfazed by the swirling energies. Your human parents raised you. That is truth. But you were born of dragon essence. That is also truth. Before Naruto could respond, a tremor shook the entire building. Azazel moved to a window, his expression darkening. We have company. It seems your arrival didn't go unnoticed. Outside, crims on magic circles blazed in the night sky as dozens of figures descended, humanoid but radiating malevolent energy. Devils, Azazel explained, black wings materializing. Not the friendly neighborhood variety either. These bear the marks of the old Satan faction, extremists who'd love nothing more than to control a power like yours. Naruto's eyes narrowed, tactical mind immediately assessing the situation. How many? At least 50. Possibly more coming. A confident smile spread across Naruto's face, the first since his arrival in this strange world. Only 50. And here I was worried it might be challenging. His hands formed a familiar cross sign. Multi-shadow clone jutsu. The room filled with smoke, and when it cleared, 20 perfect copies of Naruto stood ready for battle, each with the same determined expression. Azazel's eyes widened. Well now, that's a useful trick. Ophis observed without comment, though something like approval flickered in her normally emotionless eyes. Let's show these devils what a ninja from the elemental nations can do, Naruto said, cracking his knuckles as his clones moved to the windows. And maybe blow off some of this weird dragon energy while we're at it. The night air filled with chaotic energy as Naruto's clones engaged the devil forces surrounding Azazel's stronghold. Each clone moved with identical precision, yet adapted individually to opponents, a hive mind of battle awareness that immediately confused the attacking devils. What magic is this? Demanded a devil with aristocratic features and silver hair, his hands glowing with destructive power. No human can create solid duplicates with independent thought. The Naruto facing him grinned foxily. Good thing I'm apparently not just human then. He dodged a blast of demon icy energy that disintegrated the wall behind him, countering with a Rasengan that sent the devil spiraling into 3 of his companions. The impact created a crater in the manicured grounds, throwing up dirt and shattered stone. From the rooftop, Azazel observed the battle with growing amazement. The boy moved like no fighter he'd ever seen, combining raw power with a tactical mind that adapted instantly to unfamiliar opponents. More impressively, he fought without killing, even against enemies showing no such restraint. His combat instincts are extraordinary, Azazel remarked to Ophis, who stood beside him watching the chaos with detached interest. He's never encountered devils before, yet he's already identifying their weaknesses and adjusting his attacks accordingly. He carries the battle intuition of Great Red, Ophis stated, and my analytical precision. The combination is effective. Below them, 3 devils had cornered one of Naruto's clones, magical circles combining to form a cage of destructive energy. The clone appeared trapped, until it grinned and vanished in a burst of smoke. A substitution, a female devil hissed, scanning for the real target. Not quite, came Naruto's voice from above. Just a clone. Here's the real me. The original Naruto descended from above, his right hand extended with a swirling blue sphere of compressed chakra. Rasengan. The imp act sent all 3 devils crashing through the earth, their magical barriers shattering under the concentrated force of the attack. Naruto landed gracefully, immediately pivoting to face the next threat. A massive devil, 9 feet tall with curling horns and bat-like wings, launched a barrage of fireballs that melted stone where they struck. Naruto weaved through them with inhuman agility, his movements fluid and economical. You're fast, boy, the devil growled, voice like grinding stone. But raw speed won't save you from area attacks. He slammed his fists into the ground, creating a shockwave of hellfire that expanded outward in all directions. Naruto's eyes gleamed with challenge. His hands formed seals faster than most could follow. Water style. Water wall jutsu. Drawing moisture from the air itself. A circular barrier of water erupted around him, meeting the hellfire in an explosive collision that filled the battlefield with steam. Through this impromptu cover, 3 more Naruto clones attacked from different angles. Each wielding kunai enhanced with wind chakra that sliced through the devil's tough hide. The horned devil roared in pain and anger. Impossible. No human weapons should harm my. His words cut off as the real Naruto appeared directly in front of him, palm extended. Sage art. Wind style. Rasenshuriken. The screeching, shuriken-shaped mass of wind nature chakra expanded upon impact, engulfing the devil in a sphere of countless microscopic blades. When the light faded, the massive opponent lay unconscious but alive, his power temporarily severed at the cellular level. Azazel whistled appreciatively. That attack, it affects the target's very life force. He restrains its full potential, Ophis observed. The attack could destroy the soul itself if unleashed completely. Across the battlefield, Naruto's clones were systematically dismantling the devil forces with a combination of taijutsu, ninjutsu, and strategic teamwork. A group of devils attempted to retreat, opening a transportation circle. Oh no you don't, Naruto called out, golden chakra suddenly flaring around his body as he tapped into Kurama's power. With the 9 tails enhanced speed, he crossed the battlefield in a flash of yellow light, appearing before the escaping devils with arms crossed. We're not finished yet. The devils froze, their magic faltering as they felt the overwhelming pressure of Naruto's combined chakra and awakening dragon power. Golden chakra formed a translucent cloak around his body, while crimson scales occasionally shimmered across his skin. What are you? Whispered one devil, her confidence shattered by the display. Naruto paused, the question striking deeper than intended. What was he, really? A shinobi, a Jinchuriki, the son of dragons, as Ophis claimed. He pushed the existential question aside, focusing on the immediate threat. I'm the guy asking why you attacked us, he replied, the golden chakra cloak forming fox-like ears above his head. Start talking. The apparent leader stepped forward cautiously. We serve Lord Rizvam. He detected the dimensional disturbance and sent us to capture whatever came through. His eyes narrowed. The energy signature matched the Great Red's. Our master has plans for such power. Rizvam Levon Lucifer, Azazel spoke, descending from the rooftop to land beside Naruto. Grandson of the original Lucifer and exactly the kind of person who shouldn't get his hands on you. His expression darkened. What's that snake up to these days? The devil's eyes darted between Azazel and Naruto, calculating his diminishing odds. That information would cost me my life. Holding out won't improve your current situation, Azazel countered, summoning a spear of golden light that hummed with destructive potential. Naruto raised a hand. Wait, there's another way. He looked directly into the devil's eyes, his own briefly shifting to vertical slits reminiscent of both fox and dragon. I'm going to make you an offer. Tell us what Rizvam is planning, and you all walk away from this. Lie to me, and I'll know. The devil sneered. You're too soft, boy. No wonder humans. His words died as Naruto placed a hand on his shoulder. The touch transmitting a momentary flash of the true power contained within the shinobi, the combined might of two dragon gods tempered by the will of a human raised to protect others rather than dominate them. Last chance, Naruto said quietly. I don't want to kill anyone today. Don't make me reconsider. Fear replaced arrogance in the devil's eyes. Rizvam I.'s gathering artifacts related to dragons. Ancient weapons, scrolls, even scales. He seeks power to challenge the heavens themselves, to finish what his grandfather started. Azazel's expression grew grave, and the dimensional disturbance. Why the interest? He believes the boundaries between realms are weakening. That something is coming. Something even the gods fear. The devil's gaze fixed on Naruto. Something connected to both Great Red and Ophis. Naruto released him, stepping back. Go. Tell Rizvam that whatever power he's after, I'm not interested in his plans. And if he sends more forces after me, the outcome won't be as pleasant as tonight. The devils retreated hastily, their transportation circle flaring to life. Within moments, the battlefield stood empty save for the unconscious forms of those two injured to retreat, and the numerous Naruto clones who began gathering them together. As the last clone dispelled, returning its experiences to the original, Naruto turned to Azazel. They'll need medical attention. I disrupted their energy networks, but nothing permanent. Azazel studied him with newfound respect. You fought with remarkable restraint for someone with your power level. He gestured toward the mansion. Come, we have much to discuss, especially regarding what our captured friend revealed. As they walked, Ophis fell into step beside Naruto, her small form belying the ancient power within. You access the power of dreams during battle, she stated. Great Red's essence responded to your emotions. Naruto flexed his hand, watching as faint crimson energy briefly danced across his skin. It felt natural, like it was always part of me, just dormant until now. Because it is part of you, she replied simply. As is my power, as is the fox spirit's energy. Kurama, Naruto corrected. His name is Kurama, not fox spirit. And he's as much a person as any of us. Inside his mindscape, Kurama rumbled with grudging appreciation at the defense. Quote, this situation grows more complex by the minute, Naruto. Dragons, devils, fallen angels, this world operates on fundamentally different principles than ours. We'll figure it out, Naruto replied internally. We always do. Ophis watched this silent exchange with interest. You speak with him directly. The bond is deeper than I anticipated. Naruto's gaze sharpened. How do you know so much about me? About Kurama, about my world. For the first time, something like emotion flickered across Ophis's normally impassive features, a momentary softening that vanished so quickly Naruto almost missed it. Because, she said, her monotone voice carrying the weight of eons, I have waited for your return since the moment of your birth. Since you were taken from this world to protect you from those who would use your power. Azazel, who had been listening intently, connected the pieces with widening eyes. Ophis, are you claiming to be his mother? She finished, her gray eyes never leaving Naruto's stunned face. One of them. Inside Azazel's study, the fallen angel poured himself a generous drink, downing it in one swallow before addressing the revelation that hung in the air between them. Let me see if I understand correctly, he began, pacing the room. Ophis, the infinite dragon god, and Great Red, the apocalypse dragon, fundamental cosmic opposites who can barely exist in proximity without reality itself trembling, somehow produced a child together. He gestured at the still processing Naruto. And that child, for reasons yet unexplained, was sent to another dimension entirely. Where he grew up as a human ninja with a nine-tailed fox spirit sealed inside him. Your summary is adequate, if incomplete, Ophis replied, seated perfectly still in an armchair that dwarfed her childlike form. Naruto ran a hand through his spiky blonde hair, struggling to reconcile this information with his established identity. But I had parents, human parents. Minato Namikaze and Kushina Uzumaki. I've met their spirits. They died sealing Kurama inside me to protect the village. True, Ophis acknowledged. They raised you as their own. The transition between worlds required a vessel. A human infant whose life force had not yet fully formed. Your human mother was compatible. Compatible, Naruto echoed, a chill running through him. Azazel's analytical mind made the connection first. The Uzumaki clan, known for their unusual life force and sealing abilities. Perfect candidates to house a being of immense power. His eyes widened. The kunai that appeared 17 years ago, it wasn't random. It was part of the transfer process. The fourth Hokage's flying thunder god technique, Naruto murmured, remembering his father's legendary space-time ninjutsu. It can transport objects, or people, across dimensions. Not alone, Ophis stated, but combined with dragon power and the natural thinning between realities that occurs cyclically, yes. A pathway was created. Aeon. Iway journey to protect what could not be protected here. Naruto stood abruptly, moving to the window to stare at the unfamiliar night sky. The stars here formed different patterns, yet somehow felt right to a part of him he hadn't known existed until today. Why? He asked finally, voice quiet but intense. Why send me away? Why would two dragon gods even have a child in the first place? Ophis remained silent for so long that Naruto thought she might not answer. When she finally spoke, her monotone carried subtle undertones of ancient sorrow. Great Red embodies dreams and illusions, the infinite potential of creation. I embody silence and nothingness, the void from which all emerges and to which all returns. Our existences are contradictory yet complementary, like light and shadow. She rose from her chair, approaching Naruto with measured steps. Once per cosmic cycle, a convergence occurs, a moment when opposing forces may briefly harmonize. During such a moment, we created you. Not from desire for offspring, but from necessity. Necessity, Azazel questioned. What cosmic necessity requires dragons to reproduce? Balance, Ophis replied simply. The dimensional boundaries were weakening. The natural order required a being who could exist in multiple realities, who could embody both creation and void while maintaining the barrier between them. Naruto turned from the window, blue eyes intense. So I was created as some kind of cosmic keystone. A tool to keep reality from falling apart. The bitterness in his voice was palpable. No, Ophis corrected, her gray eyes meeting his directly. You were created with purpose, but not as a tool. You were given free will and sent to the human world precisely so you would develop beyond our limitations. A dragon born of opposing forces but raised with human compassion, human determination, human bonds. Inside Naruto's mindscape, Kurama had been uncharacteristically silent, absorbing everything. Now he spoke. It makes a disturbing amount of sense. Naruto, the immense chakra you possessed from birth, far beyond even what a Jinchuriki should have. Your unnatural healing abilities, your capacity to connect with and change others. These traits extend beyond what your human heritage could explain. If what you're saying is true, Naruto addressed Ophis, then why am I here now? Why after 17 years did that dimensional, whatever, pull me back to this world? The cycle repeats, Ophis stated. The boundaries thin once more. But now there is a difference. Her small hand gestured toward him. You have grown into your power. You have learned to control the nine-tailed fox's energy. You have faced gods in your world and emerged victorious. And something here fears that, Azazel added, pieces falling into place. Rizvim's interest in dragon artifacts, the weakening dimensional boundaries, he's preparing for something big. The return of Trihexa, Ophis confirmed, the name sending a visible chill through Azazel. The beast of the apocalypse seeks to break its seals. Rizvim intends to control it, or to use its emergence for his own purposes. Trihexa, Naruto questioned, unfamiliar with the term. Azazel's expression darkened. Think of it as this world's equivalent to your 10 tails, except possibly worse. A primordial destruction entity so powerful that God himself, the biblical God, could only seal it away rather than destroy it. Great, Naruto muttered. Another world-ending monster. Just what I needed after finally getting some peace in my own world. He sighed, then Ghtened his shoulders with renewed determination. So what now? How do I get back home? Is that even possible? Return is possible, Ophis said. But not immediate. The pathway requires specific conditions that Rizvam and his allies would exploit if created now. Naruto processed this, tactical mind already shifting to the immediate challenges. Then I need to understand this world better. Learn how my powers work here. Figure out who's friend and who's foe. Azazel nodded approvingly. A sensible approach. I can help with that. Introduce you to some reliable allies, explain the factions and politics. His eyes gleamed with scientific curiosity. And perhaps run some tests on your unique energy signature. No experiments, Naruto stated firmly, remembering Orochimaru all too well. Observations only, Azazel agreed, raising his hands in surrender. Though I'm particularly interested in how your chakra interacts with our magic systems. Ophis had moved to the window, her attention drawn to something in the distance. We will not have the luxury of gradual acclimation. Others have sensed your arrival. Her normally expressionless face showed the faintest trace of concern, including my other half. As if summoned by her words, the night sky outside split with a massive crimson tear in reality itself. Through this colossal rift appeared what Naruto could only describe as a dragon the size of a mountain, scales gleaming the color of fresh blood, wings spanning what must have been hundreds of meters, and eyes that blazed with power visible even from this distance. Great Red, Azazel whispered, genuine awe in his voice. The true dragon has left the dimensional gap. This hasn't happened in recorded history. Naruto felt something stir deep within him, a resonance. A recognition beyond conscious thought. The crimson energy that had been sporadically manifesting now flowed freely through his body, responding to the dragon's presence like iron to a magnet. My father, he murmured. The word feeling strange yet somehow right on his tongue. The great dragon regarded the mansion with eyes that contained universes of possibility. Then, with a movement that defied its enormous size, it dove toward them at impossible speed. Brace yourselves, Azazel warned, magic circles forming protectively around the building. Even a casual encounter with Great Red can level mountains. To everyone's surprise, as the massive dragon approached, its form began to contract and shift. The mountain-sized beast compressed, reformed, reshaped, until floating before the man. Scion Window was a man with crimson hair and eyes that burned like suns. His imposing figure stood at least 7 feet tall, clad in armor that seemed forged from living scales. Ophis, the transformed dragon spoke, his voice carrying the resonance of cosmic forces. You revealed yourself too soon. The plan was to wait until he fully adapted. Circumstances changed, she replied calmly. The old Satan faction already moved against him. Quote, Great Red's burning gaze shifted to Naruto, studying him with intensity that would have made most beings crumble. Naruto met the stare unflinchingly, his own blue eyes occasionally flashing with reptilian characteristics. My son has your eyes, Great Red observed, something like pride in his tone. But he has my defiance. And stubbornness, Ophis added. The transformed dragon god approached Naruto, moving with fluid grace that suggested barely contained power. You have questions, many questions. I can see them burning within you. Naruto nodded, finding his voice. A lifetime's worth. We have little time for extensive explanations, Great Red stated. Rizvam moves faster than anticipated. The seal's weakening, forces aligning against what we represent. Which is what, exactly? Naruto challenged, frustration breaking through. What am I to you beyond some cosmic accident or necessity? For the first time, emotion clearly registered on his face. Something between surprise and hurt. Great Red's expression remained inscrutable, but the energy around him fluctuated momentarily. You are our legacy, he said finally. The continuation of what we are. But with the potential to become what we cannot. Potential for what? Balance, Ophis answered. We exist as opposing forces. You exist as harmony between them. And that harmony, Great Red continued, is what Rizvam fears above all. A being who can bridge worlds, who embodies creation and void simultaneously, who can unite opposing factions through understanding both. Naruto absorbed this, the weight of cosmic expectation settling uncomfortably on shoulders already familiar with the burden of prophecy and destiny. I didn't ask for any of this, he said quietly. Neither did your friend, Great Red replied, gesturing toward Naruto's stomach where the seal contained Kurama. Yet you both adapted to your circumstances. You both transcended your intended purposes. Inside the mindscape, Kurama stirred thoughtfully. He's not wrong, Naruto. Neither of us chose our initial paths. But we chose what to become despite them. Naruto took a deep breath, centering himself. As he'd learned through years of sage training. All right, I'm here now, apparently with some cosmic destiny I didn't sign up for. But I'll handle it my way, the way I've faced everything else. A small smile tugged at Great Red's lips. And what way is that? By trusting my instincts, protecting the innocent, and never going back on my word. Naruto's eyes hardened with determination. That's my ninja way, and it doesn't change just because I've suddenly got dragon parents from another dimension. Azazel, who had been watching this family reunion with fascinated silence, finally spoke. A refreshing perspective. Most beings would be overwhelmed by such revelations. I've had practice with world-shattering news, Naruto replied dryly. Now, if we're done with the cryptic family drama, can we focus on the immediate threat? This Rizvam person and whatever he's planning with Trihexa. Great Red exchanged a look with Ophis, a moment of silent communication between cosmic forces. The boy has his priorities straight. He observed. Practical action over existential crisis. He is human in the ways that matter most, Ophis agreed, the faintest trace of what might have been approval in her monotone. And dragon in the ways that will keep him alive, Great Red added. He turned to Naruto. We cannot remain long in this form or location. Our presence draws attention from forces B. A and even Rizvam, forces not yet ready to know of your existence. Then give me something useful before you disappear again, Naruto demanded. Knowledge, training, anything that helps me understand what I'm dealing with. Great Red raised his hand, crimson energy gathering in his palm. I offer you this, a fraction of my conscious knowledge about your true abilities. The dragon aspects of your power that have lain dormant until now. Before Naruto could respond, the dragon god pressed his palm against Naruto's forehead. Information flooded his mind. Concepts, techniques, understanding of how draconic energy flowed and could be manipulated. Not complete mastery, but a foundation upon which to build. When the connection broke, Naruto staggered slightly, his eyes briefly glowing crimson before returning to their natural blue. That's a lot to process, he managed, feeling new neural pathways forming as his mind integrated the transferred knowledge. It will settle with time and practice, Great Red assured him. Your human upbringing has prepared you well for adapting to new power systems. Ophis approached next, her small hand extended. I offer balance to his gift. Knowledge of void, of infinity, of boundaries and their manipulation. Her touch was gentler but no less profound, filling Naruto's consciousness with understanding of concepts that seemed to contradict everything he knew about energy manipulation, yet somehow complemented his existing knowledge of natural energy and sage techniques. The combination of these gifts, Ophis explained, will allow you to begin controlling the dragon aspects of your nature without losing what makes you human. And what makes me human? Naruto asked, genuinely curious about their perspective. Your connections, Great Red answered immediately. Your bonds with others. Dragons are solitary by nature. Even Ophis and I exist primarily in isolation. Your capacity for growth, Ophis added. Dragons are powerful but static. Humans constantly evolve, adapt, change. Your compassion, Great Red continued. Dragons understand power and respect strength. You understand hearts and respect suffering. Naruto nodded slowly, the NSWER resonating with his own self-perception. Then that's what I'll hold on to, no matter what other changes happen. He looked between the two dragon gods. And if you're really my parents, you should understand that I forge my own path. I'll help stop this Rizvam and protect both worlds because it's the right thing to do, not because of some cosmic destiny. For the first time, something like a genuine smile crossed Ophis's face, subtle but unmistakable. This is why you were sent to the human world. This perspective could never have developed in the dimensional gap. The boy needs allies, Azazel interjected practically. Knowledge and power are essential, but in this world, connections to the various factions provide protection and resources. Agreed, Great Red said. Kuo Town hold individuals of significance, representatives of multiple factions who maintain an uneasy peace. Begin there. And Kyoto, Ophis added unexpectedly. The yokai faction will recognize the fox spirit's energy. Their leader may provide insight on bridging your two power sources. Yasaka, Azazel elaborated, the nine-tailed fox of Kyoto. Given your connection to Kurama, she might be particularly receptive. Inside Naruto's mindscape, Kurama perked up with interest. Another nine-tailed fox. Now that's worth investigating. I'll need identification, money, background information. Naruto began listing practical concerns. I can't exactly walk around explaining I'm from another dimension. Azazel waved dismissively. Leave the mundane details to me. Creating identities is simple enough, and I maintain properties in both locations. Quote, outside, the sky began to lighten with approaching dawn. Great Red looked toward the horizon, his form already beginning to shimmer with imminent transformation. Our time grows short, he stated. The dimensional balance requires our return to our natural domains. Will I see you again? Naruto asked, surprised by his own desire for confirmation. When necessity dictates, Great Red answered enigmatically, or when you learn to traverse the dimensions yourself, a skill within your potential. Ophis approached Naruto one final time, her childlike form belying the ancient being within. Trust the fox spirit, he understands liminality, existing between states of being. His guidance will prove valuable as you integrate your fragmented heritage. With that cryptic advice, both dragon gods began to transform, Great Red expanding back into his enormous draconic form, Ophis dissolving into serpentine shadows. The dimensional tier reopened, and with a final knowing look toward their son. Both beings departed. The study fell silent save for the ticking of an antique clock. Naruto exhaled slowly, shoulders dropping as the tension of the encounter dissipated. Well, Azazel said cheerfully. As far as family reunions go, I've seen worse. Naruto couldn't help but laugh, a brief release of the absurdity of his situation. Yeah, at least nobody tried to kill anyone. That's an improvement over most of my important meetings. Azazel's expression turned serious. What will you do now? You have options, limited though they may be. Naruto looked down at his hands, watching as both golden chakra and crimson dragon energy danced across his skin, distinct yet increasingly harmonious. First, I learn about this world, its rules, its powers, its people. Then I find this Rizvam and figure out what he's planning. His eyes hardened with determination. And I find a way to protect both this world and my own, because there are people I care about in both. A noble goal, Azazel commented, moving to a desk where he began gathering papers. Though you might want to start with something more immediate, like learning how to blend in with modern Japanese society. Naruto's brow furrowed. How different can it be? Azazel's laugh contained equal parts amusement and pity. Oh, my draconic friend, you have no idea. For starters, those orange clothes make you look like a traffic cone. And I'm guessing you don't have any concept of smartphones, internet, or current fashion. Great, Naruto muttered. Saved the world multiple times, but I'm about to be defeated by fashion. Don't worry, Azazel assured him, scribbling notes with surprising speed. I'll arrange everything you need to establish yourself. Documents, clothing, basic technology training. By tomorrow, you'll be ready to begin your investigation in Kuo. As dawn broke over this strange new world, Naruto Uzumaki, son of the fourth Hokage and the red-hot habanero, Jinchuriki of the nine-tailed fox, hero of the fourth great ninja war, and apparently the offspring of two primordial dragon gods, faced his newest challenge with characteristic determination. Bring it on, he said quietly. Whatever this world throws at me, I'll face it head-on. That's my ninja way. Inside his mindscape, Kurama rumbled with grudging approval. New world, new enemies, new powers, but the same stubborn Naruto. Some things never change, and some things do, Naruto replied, watching as crimson scales briefly shimmered across the back of his hand before fading away. But we'll figure it out together, partner. Just like always. As the sun fully crested the horizon, its golden light illuminated the beginning of an entirely new adventure, one that would test not just Naruto's strength and courage, but his very understanding of who and what he truly was. Chapter 2. Scales of Destiny, Heritage Unveiled. Dream and reality blurred into indistinct watercolors as Naruto floated in the void between consciousness and sleep. A kaleidoscope of memories, some his own, others ancient and unfamiliar, swirled through his mind. Fragments of battles fought across dimensions. The cosmic emptiness of the dimensional gap. The sensation of raw infinity coursing through veins that had never known limitation. He stood atop a mountain of crimson scales, each the size of a house. Below stretched an ocean of nothingness that somehow contained everything. Above, stars arranged in patterns both alien and intimately familiar blazed with cold fire. "Your heritage awakens," spoke a voice that was everywhere and nowhere. "The blood of the infinite dragon and the dragon of dreams flows stronger with each passing moment." Naruto turned to find Ophis standing beside him, her childlike form incongruous against the cosmic backdrop. Yet something about her seemed different, more substantial, more present than during their meeting at Azazel's mansion. "This isn't just a dream, is it?" he asked, instinctively understanding the nature of this encounter. "The boundary between dream and reality means little to dragons," she replied. "Especially to the son of Great Red, who embodies dreams themselves." Thundero's heartbeat pulsed through the mountain of scales beneath them. Naruto realized with sudden clarity that they stood upon the sleeping form of Great Red himself, his consciousness present yet distant. "Why am I here?" Naruto questioned, watching as crimson scales materialized and dissolved across his forearms in rhythmic waves. "To begin understanding what you are," Ophis answered, her monotone carrying unusual weight in this liminal space. "Human learning is sequential, limited by physical constraints. Dragon knowledge is simultaneous, unlimited by temporal boundaries." She extended her small hand, and the void around them transformed. They stood now in what appeared to be an ancient temple, its walls covered in murals depicting beings of immense power, dragons, gods, primordial entities located in eternal conflict and cooperation. Before angels fell, before devils rose, before gods crafted their pantheons, dragons existed, Ophis explained, gesturing to the earliest murals. "Not as mere creatures but as embodiments of cosmic principles. Great Red represents dreams, illusions, and infinite potential. I represent infinity, nothingness, and the void from which all emerges." The murals shifted, showing a catastrophic battle between forces that defied comprehension, energies that made even the Ten Tails' power seem insignificant by comparison. "Trihexa," Naruto murmured, recognizing the apocalyptic beast from Azazel's description. "The beast of the apocalypse," Ophis confirmed. "Even the combined might of dragon kind could not destroy it. The biblical god sacrificed himself to seal it away, a temporary measure at best." Quote, the images shifted again, showing the convergence of crimson and black energies, intertwining to form something new, something both familiar and strange. "Your conception," Ophis stated, watching Naruto's reaction carefully, "a moment when destruction and creation aligned, when infinity and dreams became momentarily compatible." "But why?" Naruto pressed, struggling to comprehend his own cosmic origins. "Why create me at all? Balance requires a third path," she replied cryptically. "When Trihexa stirs, neither absolute creation nor absolute void will suffice. Only harmonized power, dragon strength tempered by human heart, can maintain the equilibrium." The temple dissolved around them, replaced by a mindscape Naruto recognized intimately, the cavernous space where Kurama resided within him. The massive fox regarded them both with eyes that contained millennia of wisdom and wariness. "So the serpent visits at last," Kurama rumbled, tails swaying behind him. "I wondered when you would attempt direct contact." "You recognize me," Ophis observed, showing genuine curiosity for the first time. "Your memory transcends the dimensional boundaries." The sage spoke of entities beyond our realm. Kurama replied, "Dragons that existed before chakra itself took form. I dismissed it as metaphor, until now." Naruto looked between them, sensing untold history in their exchange. "You two know each other?" "Not directly," Ophis answered. "But the 9 fragments of the 10 Tails carry echoes of primordial knowledge. The fox remembers what came before, even if the memory was scattered across 9 vessels." "Fragments," Kurama growled, clearly disliking the terminology. "We are more than mere pieces of a greater whole." "As is he," Ophis countered, gesturing to Naruto. "More than simply dragon, more than simply human, more than simply Jinchuriki, the sum transcending its parts." The mindscape rippled as crimson energy, distinct from Kurama's orange chakra, began flowing through the chamber, intertwining with the existing power rather than conflicting with it. This is the purpose of our dream meeting, Ophis explained, turning back to Naruto. To begin the process of integration. Your dragon power awakens, but without guidance, it would fight against your chakra system rather than enhancing it. Naruto extended his hand, watching as three distant court energies manifested simultaneously: blue human chakra, orange fox chakra, and crimson dragon power, swirling in complex patterns around his fingers. How do I control it? He asked pragmatically. This power feels unstable. Because it is, Ophis confirmed. Dragon power was never meant to flow through human chakra networks. Yet your unique physiology makes integration possible. She moved closer, placing her hand atop his. Where they touched, the chaotic energies momentarily aligned, flowing in harmonious patterns. The principles of senjutsu in your world closely resemble certain aspects of dragon energy manipulation. She observed. Begin there. The balance you achieve when gathering natural energy can serve as foundation for controlling dragon power. Naruto closed his eyes, instinctively shifting into the meditative state he used for sage mode. Immediately, he sensed the difference. Where natural energy in his world felt like a gentle current, here it roared like a tsunami, vast and ancient and wild. Too much, he gasped, struggling to maintain equilibrium. Focus through me, Kurama suggested unexpectedly. Our combined chakra creates a buffer, use it. Naruto nodded, drawing on the familiar golden energy of their partnership. Using this as an intermediary layer, he cautiously reached for the crimson dragon power swirling through his system. The sensation defied description, like simultaneously touching fire and ice, like standing in the heart of a storm while experiencing perfect stillness. Power beyond anything he'd known, yet somehow innately his. Slowly, methodically, he drew the energy through channels adapted from his sage training, using Kurama's chakra as a stabilizing medium. Where the energies met, something new emerged, neither purely chakra nor purely draconic. But a synthesis that felt right in ways he couldn't articulate. Yes, Ophis said, satisfaction evident despite her monotone. You learn quickly. Naruto opened his eyes to find his body transformed, not fully draconic, but showing clear signs of his heritage. Crimson scales shimmered across his skin in elegant patterns. His normally blue eyes had shifted to vertical slits with an otherworldly glow. Most dramatically, translucent wings of pure energy had materialized from his back, reminiscent of the chakra constructs he could form using Kurama's power, yet distinctly draconic in design. This is, he began, struggling to find adequate words. Your true form, Ophis stated simply, are one aspect of it, neither fully dragon nor fully human, but harmoniously both. The transformation faded gradually as Naruto exhaled, the draconic features receding until he appeared human once more, though something in his bearing had changed, a subtle shift in presence that reflected his growing understanding. The training begins, Ophis announced as the dreamscape began dissolving around them. When you wake, remember this feeling, the balance point between your heritages. Build upon it. Wait, Naruto called as her form began fading. There's still so much I don't understand. Her voice came as if from great distance, already retreating. Understanding comes through experience, not explanation. Seek the nine-tailed fox of Kyoto. She guards knowledge vital to your integration. The dream collapsed into fragments, and Naruto jolted awake in the modern apartment Azazel had arranged for him in Kuo Town. Early morning sunlight filtered through unfamiliar blinds as he sat up, heart racing. Unlike normal dreams that faded upon waking, every detail of his encounter with Ophis remained crystal clear. More importantly, the knowledge she had imparted, the technique for balancing his various energy sources, felt firmly established in his muscle memory. Kurama, he whispered, was that real? As real as anything in this bizarre situation, the fox confirmed. The dragon goddess accessed our mindscape directly, an impressive feat considering the seals that should prevent such intrusion. Naruto moved to the apartment's bathroom, studying his reflection in the mirror. He looked unchanged. Same blonde hair, same blue eyes, same whisker marks. Yet something felt fundamentally different, as though his very atoms had been rearranged into a more harmonious configuration. Taking a deep breath, he attempted to recreate the meditative state from his dream. The energies responded. Immediately. More readily than he'd expected. Blue, orange, and crimson swirling around him invisible manifestation. Whoa, he breathed, watching as scales briefly materialized along his forearms before fading again. This is going to take some practice. His phone buzzed on the nightstand, a device Azazel had provided and hastily explained the previous day. Technology in this world remained wild, eeringly advanced compared to the elemental nations, though Naruto was adapting with characteristic determination. The screen displayed a message from Azazel, transportation to Kyoto arranged. Driver arriving 9 a.m. Contacted Yasaka, she's expecting you. Try not to cause international incident. Naruto checked the time, 7:30 a.m. Enough to shower, eat, and prepare himself mentally for the journey ahead. As he moved through these mundane activities, his mind worked through the implications of his dream training. So this Yasaka is another nine-tailed fox, he mused aloud as he experimentally channeled small amounts of dragon energy into the cup of instant ramen he was preparing. The water boiled instantly, steam rising in a perfect spiral. Handy, he noted with a grin. Not just any nine-tailed fox, Kurama corrected. If the dragon speaks truly, Yasaka is the leader of Japan's yokai, supernatural beings with origins similar to the tailed beasts. There may be connections between our worlds beyond what we've discovered. Think she'll know anything about getting us home? Naruto asked, slurping noodles thoughtfully. Perhaps. Though I sense you're not in particular hurry to return, Kurama observed shrewdly. Naruto paused mid-bite. The fox wasn't wrong. Despite the disorientation and danger, something about this world resonated with parts of him he hadn't known existed. The dragon power, flowing through him, felt simultaneously alien and deeply familiar, like rediscovering a limb he hadn't realized was missing. We have responsibilities back home, he finally replied. Friends, the village, my path to becoming Hokage. All true. Yet the path of a Jinchuriki, or a dragon's offspring, is rarely straightforward, Kurama reminded him. Perhaps your destiny encompasses both worlds. The thought lingered as Naruto prepared for the journey ahead, packing light as years of missions had taught him. As 9 a.m. approached, he gazed out the apartment window at the unfamiliar skyline of Kyoto. A world of steel and glass and electricity so different from Konoha's warmth and wood. One step at a time, he murmured to himself, a mantra that had carried him through countless challenges. First Kyoto, then answers, then home. But even as he spoke the words, something deep within questioned which home he truly meant. The bullet train sliced through the Japanese countryside at speeds that would make even the fourth Hokage's flying thunder god technique seem leisurely. Naruto pressed his forehead against the window, watching rice fields and mountains blur into impressionistic smears of green and blue and gold. Azazel's driver had turned out to be a young devil named Kiba Yuto, a pleasant, sword-wielding member of something called the Occult Research Club, who explained he was A.C. Ching's liaison under orders from his master, Rias Grimori. The Grimori clan controls this territory, Kiba had explained during the drive to the station. When Azazel-sama informed Rias-sama about your unique situation, she offered assistance. Our group has experience with unusual supernatural circumstances. Naruto had accepted the explanation with cautious gratitude, recognizing the politics at play. In any world, power respected power, and territories had gatekeepers. The Grimori devil seemed genuinely helpful, though Naruto detected an undertone of fascination in the young swordsman's politeness. Now, alone in the private compartment Azazel had arranged, Naruto used the journey time to experiment with his emerging abilities. With the privacy curtains drawn, he extended his hand and concentrated. Drawing on the techniques from his dream training, the results exceeded his expectations. Where previously the dragon energy had emerged in chaotic bursts, now it flowed with greater precision, not yet perfect control, but significant improvement. Crimson scales materialized along his arm in deliberate patterns, then faded at his command. You're adapting quickly, Kurama observed. Faster than you should be. Even for you. Muscle memory, Naruto replied, watching as small flames danced between his fingertips, not chakra-based fire but something more fundamental, as though he were re-manipulating the concept of fire itself. Like I've done this before, just don't remember it. Or perhaps dragon abilities are simply more instinctual than learned, Kurama suggested. Less like an injutsu and more like my own innate powers. The theory made sense. Where chakra techniques required specific hand signs, mental focus, and energy pathways, dragon abilities seemed to manifest directly from intention and emotion. Less structured, more primal, but potentially far more versatile. Naruto spent the remainder of the journey alternating between practicing his emerging powers and studying the information Azazel had provided on tablet, another technology that had initially bewildered him until he realized it functioned essentially like a portable library and communication device combined. The fallen angel had compiled extensive notes on Kyoto's yokai faction, with particular emphasis on their leader Yasaka. The images showed a strikingly beautiful woman with blonde hair and traditional Japanese attire, and most notably, 9 golden fox tails fanning behind her. She looks nothing like you, Naruto commented to Kurama, studying the yokai leader's elegant features. Our forms differ based on the world's fundamental laws. Kurama replied with dignity. In your world, tailed beasts manifest as more primal representations of natural energy. Here, yokai often take humanoid form while retaining aspects of their bestial nature. So you'd look like a person with ears and tails here? Naruto asked, amused by the mental image. Perhaps, Kurama answered, clearly unenthusiastic about the possibility. Though I prefer my current magnificence. Naruto laughed aloud, earning a curious look from the attendant passing by his compartment. These moments of normal banter with Kurama held ground him amid the cosmic revelations threatening to overwhelm his sense of identity. As the announcement indicated their approach to Kyoto Station, Naruto gathered his minimal belongings and centered himself. Whatever awaited in the ancient capital of Japan, he would face it with the same determination that had carried him through every prior challenge. The train glided into the station with barely a whisper. Technology so refined it seemed almost magical to someone raised in the elemental nations. As the doors opened, Naruto stepped onto the platform and immediately sensed the difference in the city's energy. Where Kuo had felt like any modern human settlement with undercurrents of supernatural activity, Kyoto pulsed with ancient power, layers upon layers of spiritual energy accumulated over centuries. The very air seemed charged with yokai presence, particularly concentrated in the direction of the forested mountains surrounding the city. We're being watched, Kurama noted unnecessarily. Naruto had already detected the observers, figures moving just at the edge of normal perception, flitting between shadows with preternatural speed. Not hostile, but definitely alert and wary. Yasaka's security detail, probably. He murmured, maintaining a casual demeanor as he followed the exit signs. Can't blame them for being cautious when something like me shows up in their territory. According to Azazel's instructions, a guide would meet him outside the station's main entrance. Naruto navigated the crowded terminal with growing confidence in this world's customs, having quickly adapted to the basic social protocols Azazel had hastily explained. Outside, the contrast between ancient and modern Japan manifested in dramatic fashion, gleaming skyscrapers and shopping centers alongside traditional temples and shrines. Cherry trees lined many streets, their blossoms creating pink canopies that softened the urban landscape. Standing precisely where Azazel had indicated waited a young woman with striking features, dark hair pulled into a practical ponytail, traditional shrine maiden attire in red and white, and eyes that reflected both wariness and curiosity. Most tellingly, her aura pulsed with yokai energy. Though carefully controlled and subdued, Uzumaki-san, she greeted with a formal bow. I am Hinoki, attendant to Lady Yasaka. Welcome to Kyoto. Naruto returned the bow with equal formality, having been briefed on basic Japanese etiquette. Thank you for meeting me. I appreciate Yasaka-sama making time to see me. If Hinoki was surprised by his proper manners, she concealed it well. The car is this way. Lady Yasaka awaits you at Fushimi Inari Shrine. As they walked toward a sleek black vehicle parked nearby, Hinoki maintained professional distance, though Naruto caught her stealing assessing glances when she thought he wasn't looking. You can ask, he offered once they were seated in the privacy of the car's back seat, a partition separating them from the driver. I'm guessing you've been told something about me, and you're curious if it's true. Hinoki's composure cracked slightly, revealing genuine surprise. Forgive me, Uzumaki-san. It's just Unusual to meet someone with your particular lineage. Dragon and human, he prompted. Dragon and dragon, she corrected, eyes widening slightly. And hosting a nine-tailed spirit besides. Yasaka was quite interested when Azazel-sama contacted her. The car navigated through Kyoto's busy streets, gradually leaving the modern city center for older districts where traditional architecture predominated. Finally, they turned onto a road that wound upward into forested hills, where massive torii gates, painted the distinctive vermilion of Inari shrines, began appearing with increasing frequency. Fushimi Inari is dedicated to the kami of rice, success, and foxes, Hinoki explained, warming slightly as they entered what was clearly yokai territory. It serves as both a public shrine and the center of yokai governance in western Japan. The car stopped before reaching the main shrine complex, at a discreet side entrance marked with symbols that seemed to shimmer with protective magic. As they exited, Naruto immediately sensed the boundary they crossed, a powerful barrier that identified and categorized every being passing through. Interesting, he murmured as the barrier's energy washed over him, clearly struggling to categorize his unique composition. Hinoki watched with unconcealed fascination. The barrier has never reacted that way before. It's trying to classify as three different types of being simultaneously. Beyond the barrier, the atmosphere changed dramatically, though the physical appearance of the shrine remained consistent with what tourists might see. Yokai now moved openly among the structures, kitsune in both human and fox forms, tengu with their distinctive noses and fans, tanuki carrying comically large sake bottles, and dozens of species Naruto couldn't identify. Many stopped to stare as he passed, conversations faltering mid-sentence. He caught fragments of whispered speculation. Dragon energy, but not pure. Carrying a nine-tailed presence inside him. Azazel's new project perhaps. Hinoki led him through a maze of shrine buildings until they reached an ancient structure set apart from the public areas. Unlike the vermilion of the main shrine, this building featured natural wood tones and subtle gold accents, surrounded by a garden of impossible perfection, where flowers that shouldn't bloom in the same season coexisted in harmonious display. Lady Yasaka's personal residence, Hinoki explained, gesturing for Naruto to remove his shoes before entering. She will see you in the inner garden. The interior continued the theme of restrained elegance. Tatami floors, sliding fusuma doors painted with landscapes of mountains and forests, and occasionally, subtle fox motifs integrated into the design elements. The overall FFECT produced a sense of timeless tranquility that even Naruto, never the most aesthetically sensitive person, could appreciate. This place exists in multiple realms simultaneously, Kurama observed with unexpected reverence. The physical world, the spiritual plane, and something else, something older. As they approached shoji doors opening onto the inner garden, Hinoki paused. Lady Yasaka asked to meet with you privately. I will wait here. Naruto nodded his thanks and stepped through the doors alone, entering a garden that defied the limitations of the space it should have occupied. The building's exterior suggested a modest courtyard. He found himself in what appeared to be acres of pristine landscape, a miniature representation of sacred Japan with flowing streams, perfectly positioned stones, and ancient trees that hummed with spiritual energy. At the garden's center, seated beside a koi pond on a simple bamboo mat, waited the nine-tailed fox of Kyoto. Yasaka's CE commanded attention without effort, an aura of refined power cultivated over centuries. Her traditional kimono, golden like her hair and eyes, featured subtle patterns that shifted with her movements, sometimes appearing as autumn leaves, other times as flowing water. 9 magnificent tails fanned behind her, each tipped with white as though dipped in snow. Naruto Uzumaki, she greeted, her voice musical yet carrying authority that resonated at multiple levels. Or perhaps I should address you as son of Great Red and Ophis. Your existence presents an interesting protocol question. Naruto PP roached and bowed respectfully before accepting her gesture to sit across from her. Naruto is fine, Yasaka-sama. I'm still getting used to the dragon part myself. A smile touched her lips, amused but not unkind. Directness. How refreshing after centuries of political niceties. She studied him openly, golden eyes taking in details beyond physical appearance. You carry a nine-tailed fox within you, yet you are not consumed by it. Fascinating. Kurama, Naruto corrected automatically. His name is Kurama, not it. And we're partners, not host and parasite. Rather than taking offense at the correction, Yasaka's expression showed genuine interest. Partners, truly. She leaned forward slightly. Would your Kurama be willing to speak with me directly? I am always present, Kurama's voice rumbled, momentarily using Naruto's vocal cords with his permission. The sound was deeper, ancient, carrying power that made the nearby water ripple. Greetings, fox of this world. Your domain is impressive. Yasaka's tail swished with evident excitement, a surprisingly unguarded reaction from the otherwise composed leader. Extraordinary. Your energy signature is similar to mine, yet fundamentally different in composition. You originate from a world where yokai took a different evolutionary path. We are not yokai, Kurama corrected. The tailed beasts were created from the 10 tails chakra by the sage of 6 paths. Our origins are artificial, though our consciousness developed naturally thereafter. Artificial, Yasaka echoed, clearly fascinated. Yet your power reads as primordial. Perhaps older than you realize. Quote, the conversation shifted to detailed comparison of their respective worlds' energy systems, Yasaka explaining the yokai power structure based on spiritual energy accumulated over centuries. While Naruto and Kurama described chakra's function as the combination of physical and spiritual energies. So your world developed a method of allowing humans to utilize what is essentially yokai energy through physical conditioning, Yasaka summarized, accepting tea from an attendant who appeared and vanished with silent efficiency. Ingenious adaptation. I never thought of it that way, Naruto admitted, accepting his own cup gratefully. The journey and constant adjustments to his dragon energy had left him unexpectedly fatigued. But that doesn't explain how I ended up in your world or what I'm supposed to do now. Yasaka's expression grew serious. That brings us to the purpose of your visit. The dimensional boundaries between worlds have always been honest in places of great spiritual significance, Kyoto being one such nexus point. When Azazel contacted me about your situation, I consulted our oldest records. She gestured, and an elderly tanuki appeared, carrying an ancient scroll case made from material Naruto couldn't identify, neither paper nor cloth nor metal, but something that shimmered with its own inner light. This text dates from before human civilization in Japan, Yasaka explained as the tanuki carefully opened the case and unrolled a portion of the contents. It speaks of the child of opposing infinities who would appear the beast of 7 heads stirs from eternal slumber. Naruto leaned forward, studying the unfamiliar script that somehow shifted to become legible as he focused on it, another manifestation of his dragon heritage adapting to new information. Trihexa, he murmured, recognizing the description. Azazel mentioned it, the apocalypse beast sealed away by the biblical god. Yasaka nodded, clearly impressed by his knowledge. The very same. The text prophesies that when Trihex's seals begin to weaken, a being born of both creation and void would emerge to restore balance, not by destroying the beast, but by establishing a new equilibrium between opposing cosmic forces. Great, Naruto sighed, leaning back. Another prophecy about me saving the world. Just what I needed. To his surprise, Yasaka laughed, a warm, genuine sound that transformed her regal demeanor into something more approachable. You speak as one who has experienced such burdens before. The child of prophecy, destined to either save or destroy the ninja world. Naruto confirmed with a rueful smile. Been there, done that, got the commemorative headband. Yasaka's amusement faded into thoughtful assessment. Yet you fulfilled that destiny on your own terms. Did you not? Found a path that honored your own principles rather than following predetermined paths. How did you? Naruto began, then understood. You can read my energy patterns. My history. She inclined her head in acknowledgement. Not details, but broad strokes. Your power carries echoes of your experiences, great suffering, greater triumphs, and choice. Made from compassion rather than expedience. Her golden eyes met his directly. Whatever prophecy may say about your current situation, I suspect you will follow a similar path here. Something abo. Her confidence eased a tension Naruto hadn't realized he was carrying. Unlike Ophis and Great Red, who seemed to view him primarily as a cosmic necessity, Yasaka recognized his agency, his determina. Chion to forge his own destiny regardless of divine parentage or prophetic expectations. The scroll contains more than prophecy, she continued, gesturing toward specific symbols. It includes technique, UES for harmonizing dragon energy with spiritual power, what you call chakra. The yokai who recorded this knowledge encountered dragon-human hybrids in ancient times, though none with your specific lineage. You're offering to help me train, Naruto realized, grateful for the practical approach. Indeed, Kyoto stands to benefit from stability between realms, and you represent a unique bridge between worlds. Her tales shifted, revealing practical political considerations beneath the mystical exterior. Additionally, as leader of Japan's yokai, I have responsibilities to my people. If Trihexa awakens fully, all realms would suffer. Their conversation continued as sunlight shifted through the garden, casting lengthening shadows across the immaculate landscape. Yasaka proved an insightful instructor, her centuries of experience with multiple energy types providing valuable perspective on Naruto's unique condition. Your challenge is unique, she observed as Naruto demonstrated his current level of control. Crimson scales manifesting along his arms before receding again. Most beings channel one primary energy source. Even hybrids typically develop separate pathways for different powers. You, however, must integrate three distinct sources: human chakra, tailed beast chakra, and primordial dragon energy. Story of my life, Naruto replied with characteristic optimism. Always doing things the complicated way. Under her guidance, he began adapting yokai techniques for energy stabilization, methods developed over centuries to help yokai maintain human form while accessing their supernatural abilities. Though designed for different power types, the underlying principles translated effectively to Naruto's situation. Visualization is key, Yasaka instructed, her own tales manifesting and receding with fluid control. Dragons respond to imagination more than technique. Where ninja hand signs direct chakra flow, dragon power follows mental imagery. Naruto closed his eyes, adapting the meditation techniques he'd learned for sage mode to this new paradigm. In his mindscape, he envisioned his energy sources not as separate forces but as tributaries feeding the same river, distinct at their origins but ultimately flowing together. When he opened his eyes, both Yasaka and Kurama registered surprise at the result. His transformation had stabilized into something harmonious. Subtle crimson scales following the same pattern as his sage mode markings, eyes blue but with vertical slits, and a controlled aura that blended all three energy signatures without conflict. Impressive adaptation, Kurama acknowledged. The energies are reinforcing rather than competing. You learn with remarkable speed, Yasaka observed, making no effort to hide her admiration. Most yokai require decades to achieve similar integration. I've always been a fast learner with practical techniques, Naruto explained, maintaining the harmonized state with growing confidence. It's the theoretical stuff that gives me trouble. As the lesson concluded and evening approached, Yasaka's demeanor shifted subtly, from instructor to diplomat. There is another matter we should discuss before you rest. Your presence in Kyoto has not gone unnoticed, and not all yokai view dragon energy favorably. Naruto nodded, having sensed the undercurrents of tension since his arrival. I noticed some pretty strong reactions as we walked through the shrine. Not all positive. Dragons represent primordial power, forces that existed before yokai established their territories and hierarchies, Yasaka explained. Historically, dragons rarely concerned themselves with yokai affairs, viewing us as lesser beings. This created resentment among certain factions. And now here comes someone who's part dragon, part human, and carrying a nine-tailed fox inside him, Naruto summarized, understanding the political complication his existence represented. Hitting all the controversial points at once. Precisely. Yasaka's tail swished with subtle agitation, the first crack in her composed exterior. A faction led by the Tengu elder Sojobo has already demanded a formal audience to address your presence. They fear what your appearance portends, particularly given the prophecy's connection to Trihexa. Naruto considered this information with more political savvy than most would expect from the once impulsive ninja. Years of diplomatic missions and experience with clan politics in Konoha had developed his understanding of factional dynamics. When is this audience scheduled? He asked practically. Tomorrow at midday, Yasaka answered. I've arranged accommodations for you within the shrine complex, quarters warded specifically for beings of unusual power. You should rest and prepare. As if summoned by discussion of rest, Naruto felt the day's exertions catching up with him, the constant adaptation to new energy states taxing even his exceptional stamina. That sounds perfect, he admitted. One question though, you've explained a lot about yokai, dragons, and prophecies, but there's something I still don't understand. Yes, why did Ophis specifically direct me to you? She mentioned why. Oh, you would understand something about integration better than others. A subtle smile touched Yasaka's lips. The Ouroboros dragon rarely explains her reasoning fully. However, I suspect it relates to my own nature. Her golden eyes gleamed with ancient knowledge. Like you, I balance multiple existences. I am simultaneously yokai, the living embodiment of Inari's divine will, and a mother to a daughter who inherits both legacies. You have a daughter? Naruto asked, somehow surprised by this humanizing detail. Kuno, Yasaka confirmed, genuine warmth entering her voice. Currently studying in our yokai academy. You may meet her during your stay. She rose gracefully, signaling the end of their meeting. For now, Hinoki will show you to your quarters. We will continue your training Tomer. Row after the audience with the yokai council. As Naruto followed Hinoki through lamp-lit shrine paths, his mind processed everything he'd learned. Yasaka represented something he hadn't encountered since arriving in this world, a being of immense power who nonetheless maintained connection to ordinary existence, who balanced cosmic responsibility with personal relationships. You admire her, Kurama observed. She's found balance, Naruto replied internally. Between power and humanity, between leadership and personal life. Something I've always struggled with. Perhaps that, rather than technical knowledge, is what Ophis intended you to learn here, the fox suggested thoughtfully. Before Naruto could respond, a disturbance rippled through the shrine's protective barriers, subtle but unmistakable to his heightened senses. Someone was testing the defenses, probing for weaknesses with extraordinary skill. Hinoki tensed, clearly sensing it too. That's not authorized entry. Security will. Her words cut off as shadowy figures materialized around them with preternatural speed. Yokai of various types, their faces concealed by traditional masks depicting Oni and yokai. Their movements suggested combat training beyond normal yokai abilities. Naruto Uzumaki spoke their apparent leader, a tall figure whose mask resembled a Karasu Tengu. Your presence threatens the stability of yokai society. We cannot allow dragon chaos to infect our realm. Naruto shifted seamlessly into combat readiness, his body responding with ingrained shinobi instinct. I'm here at Yasaka-sama's invitation. If you have concerns, there are proper channels. Diplomatic niceties are luxury we cannot afford, the masked Tengu replied, dark energy gathering around his hands. The prophecy is clear, your arrival precedes catastrophe. Or prevents it, Naruto countered, rapidly assessing their number and positions. 8 attackers, arranged strategically to prevent escape, each emanating yokai energy of considerable power. You're misinterpreting things. Sojobo-sama foresaw your coming centuries ago, another attacker hissed. This one with the mask of a kitsune, ironically. The child of opposing drive. Aegon's brings only destruction in its wake. Hinoki moved protectively toward Naruto, her own yokai nature manifesting as tiny flames around her fingertips. This is treason against Lady Yasaka's authority. Stand down immediately. We serve yokai interests beyond one leader's judgment, the Tengu leader replied dismissively. Neutralize the dragon spawn, non-lethally if possible. We need to understand the threat. They attacked with coordinated precision that would impress even Anbu operatives, each targeting specific vulnerabilities with techniques clearly designed to incapacitate rather than kill. Energy bindings sought to immobilize Naruto's limbs while suppression talismans flew toward his chakra points. Had they faced the Naruto of even a few days ago, their strategy might have proven effective. But the training with Ophis and Yasaka had accelerated his adaptation to his draconic abilities. Multi-shadow clone jutsu. 10 perfect copies of Naruto materialized instantly, disrupting He Ataka's carefully planned formation. As they adjusted to this unexpected development, the real Naruto reached for the harmonized energy state he'd practiced with Yasaka, drawing simultaneously on chakra, Kurama's power, and his awakening dragon heritage. The transformation flowed more smoothly this time, crimson scales emerging in deliberate patterns across his skin, eyes shifting to draconic slits while maintaining their blue color, and a balanced aura that blended all three power sources without the chaotic fluctuations of previous manifestations. "I don't want to fight you," Naruto stated calmly, his voice carrying undertones of draconic resonance. "But I will defend myself." The masked attackers hesitated momentarily, clearly surprised by his controlled transformation. Their leader recovered first, hands forming complex gestures that summoned howling winds sharp enough to slice through stone. "Wind against a dragon," Naruto murmured, almost pitying their tactical error. With instinctive ease, he exhaled a precise stream of his own draconic power, not fire as they might expect, but crystallized time itself, a technique subconsciously inherited from Great Red. The crimson energy intercepted the wind attack, freezing it in temporal stasis, suspended mid-movement like an artwork of glass. The yokai attackers stared in disbelief at this casual neutralization of their offensive. Taking advantage of their shock, Naruto's clones moved with synchronized purpose, engaging each opponent individually with taijutsu specifically adapted to immobilize rather than harm. Each clone demonstrated the original's characteristic restraint, using only necessary force to neutralize the threat. The Kitsune masked attacker proved particularly agile, evading the clone's initial assault with fox-like grace. "Your technique is unfamiliar," she noted, curiosity momentarily overriding hostility. "Not yokai, not devil, not angel, shinobi," the clone replied, hands forming seals for a basic earth technique. "From a different world entirely." The ground beneath the Kitsune liquefied momentarily, trapping her feet before resolidifying. As she struggled against the unexpected restraint, the clone moved behind her with blinding speed, pressing a precise point on her neck that rendered her unconscious without injury. Similar scenarios played out across the courtyard as Naruto's clones systematically disabled the attackers with efficiency that spoke of years of combat experience. Throughout the brief conflict, he maintained perfect control of his harmonized transformation, a demonstrative of integration that would have impressed Yasaka had she witnessed it. Within minutes, 7 of the 8 attackers lay unconscious or immobilized. Only their leader remained, his Tengu mask concealing his expression as he assessed his rapidly deteriorating situation. "You fight with unusual restraint for a dragon," he observed, making no move to either attack or retreat. "Because I'm not just a dragon," Naruto replied, dispelling his clones as the threat level diminished. "I'm human too, and a shinobi who believes in resolving conflicts without unnecessary violence." The Tengu laughed, a harsh, cynical sound. "Noble sentiments, but they change nothing about the prophecy. Your presence here still heralds the weakening of the seal's binding trihexa." "Correlation isn't causation," Naruto countered, surprising himself with the logical argument. "I'm here because the seals are weakening, not the other way around." Before the Tengu could respond, new presences materialized in the courtyard, Yasaka herself, flanked by elite yokai guards whose power dwarfed that of the masked attackers. Her 9 tails bristled with barely contained fury, golden eyes narrowed dangerously. "Sojobo," she addressed the Tengu leader directly. "Remove your mask. If you would challenge my authority, at least do so with your true face." The Tengu hesitated only momentarily before complying, removing the carved mask to reveal aristocratic features, sharp nose, penetrating eyes, and an expression of unwavering conviction despite his tactical defeat. "My actions serve the greater good of yokai kind," he stated unapologetically. "The dragon child's presence threatens everything our ancestors built." "Your ancestors," Yasaka corrected icily, "swore fealty to the line of Inari, which I represent. Your oath-breaking dishonors their memory." Her attention shifted briefly to Naruto, noting his controlled transformation with evident approval before returning to the Tengu elder. "Furthermore, you attack a Gyu saint under my protection based on a fragmentary understanding of prophecy." "I understand enough," Sojobo insisted. "The child of opposing dragons appears when Trihexa stirs. Catastrophe follows. You neglected the prophecy's conclusion." Yasaka countered. "The harmony born of opposition creates new balance. Without the dragon child, there is no containment, only inevitable destruction." The confrontation might have escalated further had not a new disturbance rippled through the shrine's protective barriers, this one far more violent than the yokai faction's infiltration. The very air seemed to tear as space itself distorted, creating a pulsing vortex of malevolent energy. Dimensional incursion, Yasaka identified immediately, her focus shifting from internal politics to external threat. Everyone on alert. Through the destabilized barrier stepped figures that radiated power fundamentally different from yokai energy, darker, more chaotic, corrupted. Their appearances varied wildly, some humanoid with grotesque modifications, others embodying twisted parodies of mythological beings. All wore emblems depicting a serpent devouring its tail, a perverted version of Ophis's symbol. Chaos Brigade, Sojobo identified, his conflict with Yasaka temporarily forgotten as he faced the greater threat. The old Satan faction. Their leader stepped forward, a woman whose beauty remained striking. Despite the corruption evident in her aura, long black hair framed features that might once have been kind before ambition twisted them. Most distinctive were her ears, distinctly feline, marking her as a nekosho. One of the rarest yokai subspecies. How disappointing, she purred, golden eyes scanning the scene with predatory assessment. We expected to find you vulnerable during transport, yet here you stand surrounded by Kyoto's finest. Her gaze fixed on Naruto with disturbing intensity. The dragon child, at last. Rizvam will be pleased when I deliver you. Naruto's eyes narrowed, instinctively recognizing the true danger this newcomer represented. Unlike the yokai faction's limited ambitions, this woman radiated genuine malice, power corrupted by darkness and shaped by cruelty. And you are, he questioned, buying time to assess this unexpected threat. Kuroka, she replied with mock courtesy, a tail, no, two tails, swaying behind her with hypnotic grace. Former yokai, current Chaos Brigade operative, and your escort to Rizvim's hospitality. Yasaka stepped forward protectively, her own 9 tails fanning in warning display. You trespass on sovereign yokai territory, nekosho. Whatever grievance drove you from our kind does not justify this violation. Grievances. Kuroka laughed, a sound simultaneously melodious and discordant. I simply recognize the winning side of history. When Trihexa breaks free, old powers will fall, new hierarchies will emerge. Her golden eyes gleamed with fanatical conviction. And those aligned with Rizvam will rule the remnants. As she spoke, her companions moved with practiced precision, establishing a perimeter that cut off escape routes. Unlike the yokai faction's non-lethal approach, these operatives radiated deadly intent, magic circles forming around their hands. Weapons manifesting from dimensional pockets. Take the dragon child alive, Kuroka commanded. Kill any who interfere. Chaos erupted in the shrine courtyard as 3 factions collided, Yasaka's guards defending their territory, Sojobo's rebels caught between loyalties, and the Chaos Brigade focused single-mindedly on capturing Naruto. Through this maelstrom, Naruto maintained remarkable clarity. His shinobi training had prepared him for battlefield complexity, for identifying primary threats amid confusion. Right now, that threat was clearly Kuroka, her power level far exceeding her companions. Her techniques exhibiting precision and creativity that marked her as the strategic linchpin. Kurama, he communicated internally. Time to show these dimensional invaders what we can really do. With pleasure, the fox rumbled, their energies synchronizing with practiced ease. Golden chakra flared around Naruto, forming the distinctive cloak of his tailed beast mode, but with a crucial difference. Where previously the transformation had been purely chakra-based, now it incorporated elements of his draconic heritage. The energy construct maintained its fox-like appearance but shimmered with scales of crimson light, eyes burning with the infinite potential of great red combined with Kurama's ancient wisdom. The display gave even Kuroka pause, her confident smirk faltering momentarily. Interesting. The reports mention nothing about this manifestation. Your reports are outdated, Naruto replied, voice resonating with harmonized power. I'm a fast learner. With speed that defied visual tracking, he closed the distance between them, golden crimson chakra arm extending to ensnare the nekosho. Kuroka barely evaded, her own movements exhibiting feline grace enhanced by senjutsu, the sage arts of yokai. You use natural energy, Naruto observed with surprise, recognizing the technique from his own sage training. Senjutsu is the nekosho birthright, Kuroka confirmed, countering with spectral flames that circled like predatory beasts. though I've expanded its applications beyond what my limited kin imagined possible. Around them, the battle intensified. Yasaka engaged multiple Chaos Brigade operatives simultaneously, her 9 tails functioning as independent weapons while she maintained a barrier protecting shrine attendants. Sojobo and his followers, despite their earlier antagonism, fought alongside Yasaka's guards against the common enemy, yokai unity, temporarily overcoming factional disputes. Naruto created shadow clones to assist the defenders, but kept his primary focus on Kuroka. Something about her fighting style suggested complexity beyond simple malice, techniques refined through necessity rather than cruelty, are developed for survival rather than dominance. Why serve Rizvam? He questioned, genuinely curious as they exchanged increasingly complex attacks. You're strong enough to chart your own path. Survival requires powerful allies, she replied, though something flickered beneath her confident exterior, doubt, perhaps, or old pain carefully concealed. Rizvam offers protection and purpose. At what cost? Naruto pressed, recognizing the rationalization of someone who'd compromised their principles incrementally until the original line was lost from sight. What purpose is worth helping someone unleash an apocalypse beast? Her rhythm faltered momentarily, enough for Naruto to penetrate her defenses with a chakra arm that pinned her against a shrine pillar. Rather than struggle, she the sound oddly genuine despite their conflict. You're different, she observed, studying him with new interest as he maintained his hold without causing unnecessary pain. Most dragons would have incinerated me by now. Most devils would have tortured for information. You just talk. I believe people can change their paths, Naruto replied simply. Even those who think they've gone too far to turn back. Something complex crossed Kuroka's features, recognition, perhaps, or long-buried hope briefly surfacing. Before she could respond, however, a massive surge of power rippled through the dimensional barrier, far greater than the initial incursion. Retreat signal, she identified, genuine alarm replacing her earlier confidence. Something's wrong. This wasn't the plan. The Chaos Brigade, the operatives began disappearing through hastily constructed transportation circles, abandoning their mission with unexpected urgency. Kuroka's expression shifted to calculation as she assessed her options. Release me or kill me, she stated flatly. Those are your choices now. Naruto studied her intently, seeing beyond the facade to the complexity beneath, a being driven by circumstances as much as choice. Dangerous but not irredeemable. There's always another choice, he countered, loosening his hold slightly. Tell me what Rizvam is planning, and I'll let you go. Kuroka's eyes widened with genuine surprise at the offer. You'd trust the word of an enemy. I'd trust someone smart enough to recognize when allegiances need reevaluation, Naruto replied. Whatever triggered that retria signal scared you, which means Rizvam's plans might be more dangerous than you realized. For a moment, genuine conflict played across her features, calculation and self-interest warring with something deeper. Something perhaps long dormant. Finally, decision crystallized in her golden eyes. Rizvam seeks artifacts that once belonged to the original Lucifer, weapons designed to pierce divine protections, she revealed rapidly. Aware of her limited time before the retreat completed, including Trihex's seals, but recently, he's become obsessed with dragon energy, specifically, the power signet. You're that appeared when you crossed dimensions. Why? Naruto pressed, sensing crucial information. The final seal requires a key forged from opposing forces, she continued urgently. Lucifer create it as ultimate insurance, a way to ensure only someone of his bloodline could ever release Trihexa if needed. Rizvam believed he alone could provide this key, but your emergence presents complications to his assumptions. A transportation circle began forming beneath her feet, automated extraction protocol activating as the last Chaos Brigade operatives vanished from the battlefield. One last thing, she added as her form began dissolving into the circle's energy. If you survive long enough to reach Rizvam, ask him about the connection between Indra and the original Lucifer. The answer might surprise you. Before Naruto could question this cryptic statement, Kuroka vanished entirely, leaving only lingering traces of yokai energy tinged with something darker, something corrupted by exposure to forces beyond natural balance. As the chaos subsided and Yasaka's forces secured the shrine grounds, Naruto processed everything he'd learned. The Nekosho had provided valuable intelligence. Yet her final statement raised more questions than answers. Indra, the elder son of the Sage of Six Paths, progenitor of the Uchiha clan, connected somehow to this world's fallen angel Lucifer. The plot thickens, Kurama observed dryly. Our worlds may be more interconnected than we realized. Yasaka approached, her battle transformation receding as immediate danger passed. Though she maintained regal composure, evidence of genuine combat marked her appearance: singed kimono edges, slightly disheveled hair, a minor cut healing along one cheek. You handled yourself impressively, she noted, serving the minimal damage in Naruto's vicinity despite the intensity of his confrontation with Kuroka. Few could match a Nekosho Senjutsu master while simultaneously maintaining such control over three distinct power sources. She was holding back, Naruto assessed candidly. Testing me more than trying to capture me. Something about the mission parameters didn't sit right with her from the beginning. Perceptive, Yasaka acknowledged. Her attention shifted to Sojobo, who approached with uncharacteristic humility, his earlier belligerence tempered by battlefield reality. And you, Elder, has this incursion clarified your perspective on our visitor? The Tengu bowed formally, not to Yasaka, but to Naruto. I misjudged based on historical prejudice rather than present evidence. You foe, to protect our shrine despite our earlier hostility. Such action speaks louder than prophecy. Naruto accepted the apology with characteristic grace, recognizing the courage required to acknowledge error. No hard feelings. In your position, I'd probably be suspicious too. As shrine attendants began restoration efforts and medical yokai tended the wounded, Yasaka drew Naruto aside to a relative private alcove overlooking the forest beyond the shrine complex. This attack changes our priorities, she stated without preamble. The Chaos Brigade's interest in you confirms Azazel's warnings about Rizvim's plans for Trihexa. Your training must accelerate beyond theoretical understanding to practical combat application. Naruto nodded agreement, already mentally cataloging techniques that would benefit from draconic enhancement. Kuroka mentioned artifacts belonging to the original Lucifer. Any idea what those might be? Lucifer created numerous weapons during the Great War between biblical factions, Yasaka explained. Her expression grave. Most were destroyed or sealed away after his defeat, but rumors persist of a repository hidden beyond conventional dimensional boundaries, A.V. Alt accessible only to those carrying his blood. Like Rizvim, Naruto concluded. His grandson, according to Azazel. Precisely. And if Kuroka spoke truly about a key forged from opposing forces. Yasaka trailed off, the implication clear. He needs me, Naruto finished. Or rather, the unique energy signature I represent. Which explains the extraction attempt rather than assassination, Yasaka confirmed. Though I suspect Rizvim underestimated both your combat capabilities and adaptability. As night fully descended over Kyoto, shrine lanterns illuminated with mystical fire that saws. Chi-no shadows. Yokai magic creating safety within boundary lights. In this ethereal illumination, Yasaka's features softened slightly, professional assessment giving way to genuine concern. You should rest, she advised. Tomorrow's training will be more intensive than today's. We need to develop your dragon abilities beyond instinctual response to conscious application. Naruto recognized the wisdom in her suggestion. Fatigue beginning to register as adrenaline faded. The harmonized transformation, while more stable than previous manifestations, still taxed his energy reserves considerably. Thank you, he said sincerely. Not just for the training, but for believing me when I arrived with a pretty unbelievable story. A smile touched Yasaka's lips, transforming her countenance from regal leader to something warmer. More personal. Perhaps I recognized something familiar in your situation. Balancing power with humanity. Cosmic responsibility with individual choice. Her golden eyes met his directly. It can be a lonely path. Quote, the moment held unexpected connection, understanding between two beings who navigated similar dualities despite their different origins and circumstances. Summit. Hing shifted in Naruto's perception of Yasaka, seeing beyond the powerful yokai leader to the person beneath, someone who understood burdens few others could comprehend. Their potential conversation was interrupted by the arrival of Hinoki, who bowed apologetically before addressing Yasaka. Forgive the intrusion, Lady Yasaka, but your daughter has returned from her studies and wishes to see you. She's quite insistent. Yasaka's expression transformed again, this time with unmistakable maternal warmth. Kuno always is. She turned back to Naruto. Would you care to meet her? She has been most curious about our visitor from another dimension. Before Naruto could respond, a small golden blur shot past Hinoki and launched directly at Yasaka, a young girl of perhaps 12 years, with the same golden hair and eyes as her mother, though with more exuberant energy and fox ears perched atop her head. "Mother!" she exclaimed, embracing Yasaka with unrestrained affection before noticing Naruto. Her eyes widened comically as she sensed his unique energy signature. Is this him? The dragon human with another fox inside him? Can I see the fox? Does he have wings? Can he breathe fire? The raw, PID fire questions prompted genuine laughter from Naruto, the first truly unguarded moment since his arrival in this world. Something about Kuno's enthusiastic curiosity reminded him of himself at that age, before responsibilities and prophecies had complicated his existence. "Kuno," Yasaka chided gently, though obvious affection underlay her tone. "Where are your manners? Introduce yourself properly to our guest." The young kitsune composed herself with visible effort, executing a formal bow that was equal parts perfect protocol and barely contained excitement. "Welcome to Kyoto, honored guest. I am Kuno, daughter of Yasaka and heir to the Kyoto yokai leadership. Thank you for defending our shrine against those nasty intruders." Naruto returned the bow with equal formality, though his eyes twinkled with amusement. "Thank you for the welcome, Kuno-sama. I'm Naruto Uzumaki, shinobi of Konoha and, apparently part dragon. And the nine-tailed fox," she prompted hopefully, her own small tail swishing with anticipation. "I am always present, young kit." Kurama spoke through Naruto briefly, his deep voice carrying ancient power that made shrine lanterns flicker momentarily. Though not always visible, Kuno's eyes grew impossibly wider, her excitement palpable. "Amazing. Your fox speaks, and feels so much stronger than any yokai I've ever met. Even stronger than mother, though don't tell her I said so." Perceptive child, Kurama noted with unexpected approval. As Kuno bombarded them with increasingly detailed questions about the shinobi world, tailed beasts, and dragon abilities, Naruto found himself relaxing genuinely for the first time since arriving in this dimension. The young kitsune's enthusiasm provided welcome respite from cosmic responsibilities and interdimensional politics. Yasaka watched their interaction with knowing eyes, recognizing the therapeutic effect her daughter's innocent curiosity provided. When Kuno eventually exhausted her initial barrage of questions and herself in the process, Yasaka gently suggested it was time for bed. "But mother," the young kitsune protested through a poorly concealed yawn, "I still have at least 37 more questions." "Which will wait until tomorrow," Yasaka replied firmly, though with obvious affection. "Naruto-san needs rest as much as you do, especially after defending our home." With reluctant acceptance, Kuno bid them goodnight, extracting a promise from Naruto to demonstrate some shinobi techniques the following day. As she departed with Hinoki, the night settled into quieter rhythms around the shrine complex. Yokai magic restoring damaged structures, protective barriers strengthening against future incursions. "She's a remarkable child," Naruto observed sincerely. "My greatest achievement and greatest vulnerability," Yasaka acknowledged with maternal pride tinged with concern. "The burden of leadership will fall to her eventually, along with all its complications." Naruto reckoned the weight behind her words, the universal parental desire to both prepare a child for responsibility and protect them from it simultaneously. "If today is any indication," he offered, "she has a strong foundation. Curious, perceptive, and compassionate, rare qualities in any world." Yasaka smiled gratefully at the observation. "Thank you. Though I sometimes wonder if I've found the right balance between preparing her for her destiny and allowing her to simply be a child." From someone who grew up with an extremely complicated destiny, Naruto replied thoughtfully, "The greatest gift is having someone who sees you as a person first, vessel or heir or prophecy fulfillment second." He smiled, remembering Iruka, Kakashi, his friends who had anchored his humanity through extraordinary circumstances. "Kuno clearly has that in you." Something in Yasaka's expression softened at his words, appreciation for understanding that transcended their different circumstances. "Your insight belies your youthful appearance, Naruto Uzumaki." Quote, "I've lived an eventful life," he replied with characteristic understatement. As they parted for the night, Naruto following a shrine attendant to his prepared quarters. He found himself reflecting on the day's developments with surprising optimism despite the evident dangers. In Yasaka, he had found not just an instructor but a potential ally who understood his unique position. In Kuno, a reminder of the innocence worth protecting in any world. Even Sojobo's faction and the encounter with Kuroka had provided valuable perspective, different angles and the complex interdimensional situation unfolding around Trihex's potential awakening. His assigned quarters reflected traditional Japanese aesthetics: tatami flooring, futon bedding, sliding shoji screens leading to a private meditation garden. Protective seals shimmered subtly along the walls, designed specifically to contain and stabilize unusual energy signatures during rest. As Naruto prepared for sleep, his mind categorized priorities with strategic clarity: master his draconic abilities under Yasaka's guidance, understand Rizevim's specific plans regarding Trihexa, investigate the cryptic connection between Indra and Lucifer, and ultimately, find a way to protect both this world and his own from whatever apocalyptic scenario Trihex's awakening might trigger. An ambitious agenda, Kurama commented dryly. Though I'd expect nothing less from you at this point. One step at a time, Naruto replied, settling onto the futon with practiced ease. First, get stronger. Then figure out the interdimensional cosmic conspiracy. Then save multiple worlds from apocalypse. Then maybe ramen. The fox's rumbling laughter accompanied Naruto into sleep, a partnership that had evolved from antagonism to deep trust. A reminder that even the most seemingly incompatible beings could find harmony through understanding and shared purpose. As consciousness faded, Naruto's mind drifted into dreams unlike any he'd experienced before. Vivid visions spanning multiple realities, glimpses of cosmic truths beyond human comprehension, and occasionally, the watchful presence of two primordial dragons observing their offspring's progress from across dimensional boundaries. In one particularly vivid sequence, he stood atop the Hokage monument, gazing out at a Konoha transformed by swirling dimensi. Onal portals connecting it to landscapes from this new world, Kyoto's ancient shrines, Kuo's modern architecture, and places he had yet to visit. Friends from both worlds moved freely between these connected spaces, unified despite their different origins. Whether prophetic vision or merely subconscious processing, the dream left him with lingering optimism as morning sunlight filtered through rice paper screens. Beginning his first full day in Kyoto, a day that would accelerate his understanding of his draconic heritage, deepen his connection to this world, and bring him one step closer to fulfilling the destiny he'd shape on his own terms, regardless of prophecy or cosmic parentage. Chapter 3. Infinite Legacy. Worlds Converge. The morning dawned crisp and clear over Kyoto, golden sunlight filtering through ancient trees surrounding Yasaka's private training ground. Here, sequestered from curious eyes and protected by barriers that contained explosive energy, Naruto stood at the center of a perfectly circular clearing. His eyes closed in concentration, body perfectly still save for the gentle rise and fall of his chest. Balance is your greatest challenge and your greatest strength, Yasaka instructed, circling him with measured steps. Her 9 tails swayed in rhythmic patterns, creating subtle currents in the ambient energy. Where most beings channel a single power source, you must harmonize 3 distinct energies simultaneously. A week had passed since the Chaos Brigade's attack on the shrine, a week of intensive training that pushed even Naruto's legendary stamina to its limits. Each day began before dawn with meditation techniques adapted from yokai traditions, followed by practical applications that integrated his shinobi skills with emerging draconic abilities. Focus on the point of convergence, Yasaka continued, her voice a calm anchor amid the swirling energies. Not where the powers meet, but where they transcend their individual limitations. Naruto's breathing deepened as he reached inward, visualizing the distinct energy sources flowing through his system. Blue human chakra, controlled, structured, refined through years of training. Orange fox chakra, wild, ancient, tempered by partnership and mutual respect. Crimson dragon power, primordial, limitless, awakening to conscious direction. Where previously these forces had competed or merely coexisted, now they began moving in deliberate harmony, tributaries merging into a river of unified potential. Now, Yasaka commanded softly. Naruto opened his eyes, now gleaming with otherworldly light, not the vertical slits of pure dragon transformation nor the fox-influenced sage mode, but something entirely new. The transformation flowed across his body with fluid control, crimson scales materializing in intricate patterns that resembled both draconic heritage and sage markings, a balanced aura that blended all three energy signatures without conflict. Most significantly, translucent wings formed from pure energy materialized from his back, similar to the chakra constructs he could create using Kurama's power, yet distinctly draconic in structure and resonating with the limitless potential inherited from Great Red. Perfect, Yasaka assessed, genuine admiration in her golden eyes. You've achieved in 1 week what takes most yokai decades, true integration rather than mere coexistence of different power sources. Naruto maintained the transformation with growing confidence, extending his awareness outward to sense the protective barrier surrounding them, feeling its structure, identifying potential strengthening points. With deliberate focus, he channeled a precise stream of harmonized energy toward one such point, reinforcing rather than disrupting it. Your control improves exponentially, Yasaka noted, watching as the barrier shimmered with renewed strength. More importantly, you're developing instinctive understanding of energy structures beyond your own world's systems. It feels natural, Naruto admitted, carefully testing the wings' responsiveness. They extended and contracted at his command, powerful enough to generate wind currents that rustled the surrounding trees. Like my body always knew how to do this but was missing the right key. Inside his mindscape, Kurama observed the transformation with analytical interest. The dragon energy no longer feels foreign to our chakra network. The pathways have adapted, evolved, even. Because they're remembering, not learning, came a new voice, monotone yet somehow resonant with cosmic weight. Both Naruto and Yasaka turned to find Ophis standing at the clearing's edge, her childlike form unmoved by the energy currents generated by Naruto's transformation. Though her expression remained impassive as ever, something-like approval flickered in her ancient eyes. Ophis, Yasaka greeted respectfully, bowing with the deference due to a primordial entity. We did not sense your arrival. Few do, the dragon god replied simply. Her attention remained fixed on Naruto, studying his harmonized transformation with the intensity of a creator assessing their work. The integration progresses faster than anticipated. Your human adaptability exceeds expectations. Naruto met her gaze directly, his own power now stable enough to withstand her presence without the discomfort of their first meeting. I had good teachers, he acknowledged, nodding toward Yasaka, and plenty of motivation, considering the Chaos Brigade's interest in using me to wake up an apocalypse beast. Trihexa stirs regardless of their actions, Ophis stated with characteristic bluntness. The dimensional boundaries thin according to cosmic cycles beyond even Rizvim's manipulation. She approached with measured steps, each movement precise as though calculated to disturb reality as little as possible. When she stood before Naruto, the contrast between her childlike appearance and the infinite power she embodied seemed particularly stark. You have questions, she observed. Not a question but a statement of fact. About 100,000, Naruto confirmed with a wry smile, the wings behind him folding neatly as he released me aspects of the transformation while maintaining the core balance. But I'll start with the most pressing. What's the connection between Indra, a person from my world, and Lucifer from this one? If Ophis was surprised by the specificity of the question, she showed no sign. Perception across dimensions is not linear but recursive. Patterns repeat with variation. The same souls manifest different Why according to each world's fundamental laws? You're saying Indra and Lucifer are the same person? Naruto pressed, trying to grasp the cosmic implications. Not the same, but connected, reflections across dimensional boundaries. Ophis's monotone carried subtle undertones of concepts beyond human language. What manifests as chakra lineage in your world expresses as angelic or demonic bloodline in this one. Yasaka's tales stilled, her scholarly interest evident. A fascinating proposition. The yokai archives contain legends of beings who exist simultaneously across multiple planes, different aspects of the same fundamental existence. Like how the Sage of Six Paths might correspond to God from the Bible here. Naruto suggested, making connections rapidly. A simplified but adequate parallel, Ophis confirmed. Which explains why Rizvam seeks you specifically. Your unique existence, part dragon, part human, stabilized by the nine-tailed entity, creates a bridge between dimensional express Reshans that could theoretically access Lucifer's sealed repository. This revelation aligned with Kuroka's information about Rizvam needing a key formed of opposing forces. If Indra's chakra signet, Ur somehow resonated with Lucifer's power because they were dimensional counterparts, Naruto's unique energy composition might indeed bypass safeguards designed to admit only those of Lucifer's bloodline. So Rizvam can't access these weapons without me, Naruto concluded, strategic mind immediately assessing implications. Which means protecting me from capture as priority one. Simplistic, Ophis countered. Rizvam pursues multiple approaches simultaneously. If he cannot harness your energy directly, he will seek alternatives, perhaps extracting your essence, creating artificial dimensional bridges. Or accelerating Trihex's awakening through other means. Great, Naruto sighed, running a hand through his spiky blonde hair. So we're on a countdown to apocalypse with multiple possible triggers. Hence the accelerated training, Yasaka interjected practically. And why we need to expand beyond Kyoto's resources. The next phase requires knowledge of dimensional travel beyond what yokai tradition preserves. Ophis nodded in rare agreement. The Valkyrie researches such matters in Kuo. Her connection to Asgardian world tree magic provides perspective lacking in other pantheons. Valkyrie, Naruto questioned, adding yet another supernatural category to his growing mental catalog of this world's beings. Rosweiss, Yasaka clarified, former bodyguard to Odin, current teacher at Kuo Academy. She's been researching dimensional boundaries since anomalies began appearing several months ago. Her golden eyes met Naruto's with something like reluctance. I've arranged for you to travel to Kuo tomorrow to consult with her. The speed of this transition surprised Naruto, who had grown comfortable in Kyoto's structured training environment. So soon, I thought we'd have time to develop the combat applications. Time accelerates as Trihex's seals weaken, Ophis stated. What was measured in months now contracts to weeks. Additionally, Yasaka added with diplomatic care, your presence in Kyoto, while valuable for training purposes, creates certain political complications. The Chaos Brigade attack exposed vulnerabilities in our defenses. Some yokai factio NS question whether hosting you endangers our people unnecessarily. Though delivered gently, the underlying message was clear. Naruto's extended presence risked destabilizing Yasaka's leadership posy. Chion among the naturally factional yokai. Political reality necessitated his departure despite their productive training partnership. I understand, Naruto acknowledged, recalling similar dynamics from shinobi village politics. The last thing I want is to create problems for you after all your help. You misunderstand, Yasaka corrected, her tail swishing with uncharacteristic agitation. This is not banishment but strategic repositioning. Kuo offers resources Kyoto cannot, proximity to the Grimoire clan, Azazel's research facilities, and Rosweiss's dimensional expertise. She approached him directly, golden eyes meeting his with unexpected intensity. Furthermore, I will be joining you there within the week, after settling matters here. This fight concerns all factions, yokai included. The news shifted Naruto's perspective completely. Not abandonment but expansion of their alliance, not ending their connection but transforming it. Ophis watched this exchange with the detached curiosity of an entity to whom human emotions remained largely theoretical. The nine-tailed yokai has proven an effective instructor, she observed. Her continued involvement is optimal. From Ophis, this constituted high praise indeed. Yasaka acknowledged it with a respectful inclination of her head, though something in her expression suggested complexity beyond simple professional satisfaction. A personal investment in Naruto's development that transcended tactical considerations. Until then, Yasaka continued, refocusing on practical matters, there's one final aspect of your training we should address before you depart. She exchanged a meaningful glance with Ophis, who nodded almost imperceptibly. Flight, the dragon god stated simply. Naruto blinked, looking between them. Flight, you mean with these? He extended the energy wings experimentally, generating gusts that stirred fallen leaves into spiraling patterns. Dragons do not simply fly, Ophis corrected, her monotone carrying undertones of cosmic perspective. They navigate dimensional currents, distance, time, and space function differently through draconic perception. Consider how the Hiraishin technique of your father compressed space between points. Yasaka elaborated, referencing the Flying Thunder God technique with surprising familiarity. Dragon flight operates on similar principles but without requiring pre-established markers. The wings are merely physical manifestations of a fundamentally dimensional ability. The concept both excited and intimidated Naruto, who despite his many extraordinary abilities had never truly mastered flight. Even his six-paths sage mode had offered levitation rather than true aerial maneuverability. "Show me," he requested, eager despite the complexity. What followed was perhaps the most exhilarating training session since his arrival in this world. Under Yasaka's practical guidance and Ophis's cryptic but profound instruction, Naruto began exploring the Dimensio. Null aspects of his draconic heritage, not merely propelling himself through air but sensing and navigating the subtle currents of reality itself. Initial attempts produced comical results, brief hovering, followed by undignified crashes into protective barriers. Yet with characteristic determination and inexhaustible stamina, Naruto refined his technique through dozens of iterations. "Feel the boundaries between states of being," Ophis instructed during a particularly frustrating attempt. "Not simply physical space but the thresholds between dimensions." "Less metaphysics, more practical application," Yasaka suggested diplomatically. Recognizing Naruto's learning style, "Imagine the air as water with different densities and currents. Your wings don't push against it, they interact with these currents." The combined approach eventually yielded results. By mid-afternoon, Naruto was executing controlled flights within the barrier, initial awkwardness giving way to increasing confidence as instinctive draconic knowledge awakened through practice. The capability was always there, Ophis observed as Naruto landed with newfound grace after a particularly complex aerial maneuver. Dormant until activated by conscious intention. "Like muscle memory for something I've never actually done before," Naruto agreed, the wings folding neatly behind him before dissolving into particles of light. Though physically taxing, the flight practice had invigorated rather than exhausted him, as though accessing this draconic ability had unlocked new energy reserves previously unavailable. Sufficient for basic transportation, Yasaka assessed practically, though true dimensional navigation will require further development. "And guidance from one who traverses such boundaries routinely," Ophis added. Her attention shifted suddenly, head tilting as though listening to something beyond normal perception. Great red stirs. The dimensional gap fluctuates with increased frequency. This cryptic announcement clearly concerned Yasaka, whose tails bristled momentarily before she regained composed control. Another sign of Trihex's influence spreading. "We must accelerate preparations." The training concluded with practical details about Naruto's journey to Kuo, transportation arrangements, contact protocols, necessary documentation. Throughout these logistical discussions, Ophis remained uncharacteristically present, occasionally offering observations that suggested deeper involvement in events than her typically detached demeanor indicated. As twilight approached and they prepared to leave the training ground, Naruto addressed Ophis directly. "You're not just here to check my progress, are you? Something else is happening." The dragon god regarded him with expressionless eyes that nevertheless contained infinity. "Perception improves with integration," she acknowledged. "Yes, the balance shifts faster than anticipated. Trihex's stirring creates ripples across dimensional boundaries, ripples that could potentially reach your original world." The implications hit Naruto with physical force, concern for Konoha, for friends who had no knowledge of her defense against threats from beyond their dimension. "Is there a way to warn them? To protect them?" he asked urgently. "Potentially," Ophis replied. "As your abilities develop, your connection to both worlds strengthens. You become the bridge, the anchor point between dimensional expressions. Which is precisely why Rosweiss's research is crucial," Yasaka added, placing a reassuring hand on Naruto's shoulder. "If anyone can develop controlled dimensional communication, it's her. This possibility, contact with his home world, perhaps eventually travel between dimensions, provided renewed purpose and urgency. More than abstract cosmic responsibility or even self-preservation, the protection of people he loved gave Naruto's mission concrete emotional weight. "Then I'd better not waste any more time," he stated, determined. Manation hardening his features into the expression friends from Konoha would instantly recognize, the unshakable resolve that had defined him through countless challenges. As they exited the training ground, Kuno waited beyond the barrier, practically vibrating with excitement despite attempts to maintain proper decorum. The young kitsune had appointed herself Naruto's unofficial guide to yokai culture during his stay, her infectious enthusiasm and insatiable curiosity providing welcome respite from cosmic concerns. "Naruto-sama," she called, golden eyes widening as she sensed the residual energy from his training. "You were flying." I felt the air currents from the shrine. Her attention shifted to Ophis, curiosity temporarily overcoming proper protocol. "Is this one of your dragon parents? She feels endless." Kuno, Yasaka admonished gently, though a smile tugged at her lips. "Remember your manners." The young kitsune composed herself with visible effort, executing a formal bow toward Ophis. "Forgive my excitement, honored dragon god. Your presence honors Kyoto." Ophis studied the child with something approaching curiosity, a rare emotional response from the typically impassive entity. "Innocence perceives truth more clearly than experience," she observed cryptically. "Yes, young fox, I am what you might call his mother, though such terms are imprecise when applied to beings like myself." Rather than being intimidated by this cosmic entity, Kuno's eyes lit with fresh curiosity. "So do dragons have families like yokai? Do you have other children? Can Naruto-sama breathe fire or only fly? Will his children be dragons too or?" "Kuno," Yasaka interrupted with firmer tone, though affection remained evident. "Perhaps these questions can wait for a more appropriate time." To everyone's surprise, something approximating amusement flickered across Ophis's normally expressionless features. "Curiosity is the foundation of understanding," she stated. "The young fox asks questions others fear to articulate." She turned to Kuno directly, addressing her with the same gravity she might use with cosmic entities. "Dragons exist beyond conventional familial structures. Naruto represents a unique convergence. Not typical reproduction. His capabilities continue developing according to need and circumstance. As for potential offspring," she glanced briefly, significantly, toward Yasaka. "That remains to be discovered." The subtle implication in this last statement created a moment of startled silence, broken only when Naruto cleared his throat awkwardly. "Maybe we should head back to the shrine. I still need to prepare for tomorrow's journey." As they walked through the forest path connecting the training ground to the main shrine complex, Kuno bombarded Naruto with questions about his flight experience, her enthusiasm providing welcome distraction from weightier matters. Yasaka and Ophis followed at measured pace, engaged in quieter conversation that occasionally drifted into languages beyond human comprehension. The evening proceeded with unexpected normalcy, considering the cosmic entities and supernatural beings involved. A formal dinner in Naruto's honor marked his last night in Kyoto. Attended by Yasaka, Kuno, and various yokai dignitaries including, notably, Sojobo, whose initial hostility had transformed into respectful alliance following the Chaos Brigade attack. "The Tengu will monitor dimensional fluctuations in your absence," the elder promised during a private moment. "Our mountain strongholds exist partially between realms, Aloan. G is to detect disturbances before they fully manifest." "I appreciate that," Naruto replied sincerely, recognizing the strategic value of such early warning systems. "And I'll make sure Yasaka receives immediate updates from Kuo about anything we discover." Sojobo studied him with penetrating eyes that held centuries of wisdom. "You are not what I expected, dragon child. Your human heart tempers your inherent power in ways I failed to anticipate." "I'll take that as a compliment," Naruto replied with a grin that momentarily revealed slightly elongated canines, a subtle manifestation of his ongoing physiological integration. As intended, the Tengu confirmed with rare humor. "May the winds favor your wings, Naruto Uzumaki. Kyoto will await your return." Throughout the evening, Ophis Ned present yet detached, observing interactions with the analytical distance of a scientist studying unfamiliar specimens. Only occasionally did her attention fix on Naruto with greater intensity, as though assessing minute changes in his development invisible to others. As the gathering concluded and guests departed, Naruto found himself in a private garden adjacent to his quarters, a contemplative space designed for meditation and reflection. Here, Beneath stars arranged in patterns still unfamiliar despite weeks in this world, he attempted to process everything he'd learned and prepare mentally for the next phase of his journey. Your thoughts are unusually turbulent tonight, Kurama observed from within their shared mindscape. Concerns about tomorrow's transition? Partly, Naruto acknowledged, gazing upward at constellations that held no childhood memories for him. But mostly thinking about home, about Konoha, and what it means if Trihex's awakening could affect that world too. Your concern for others remains your defining characteristic, the fox noted, his tone carrying an undertone of approval beneath the customary gruffness. Though perhaps your definition of others expands to include this world now as well. The observation struck deeper than Kurama perhaps intended. During his weeks in Kyoto, Naruto had formed genuine connections with Yasaka and her balanced perspective on power and responsibility. With enthusiastic Kuno who approached cosmic complexities with refreshing directness, even with initially hostile Sojobo, whose transformation from antagonist to ally mirrored many relationships in Naruto's past. I can care about both worlds, Naruto asserted, though uncertainty colored his conviction. Find a way to protect everyone. A noble aspiration, came Yasaka's voice from the garden entrance. She stood silhouetted against paper lanterns, nine tails forming a golden fan behind her. Though perhaps even you must acknowledge limits eventually. Naruto turned toward her, appreciating how the traditional kimono complemented her regal bearing while moonlight gilded her features with ethereal illumination. During their training partnership, he had come to respect not just her power but her wisdom, the perspective gained through centuries of leadership and difficult choices. Acknowledging limits has never been my strong point, he admitted with a self-deprecating smile. Just ask Kurama, an understatement of historic proportions, the fox confirmed dryly. Yasaka approached, settling gracefully beside him on the garden bench. For a moment, they sat in companionable silence, listening to the gentle harmony of night sounds, distant wind chimes, rhythmic cricket song, the soft burble of a decorative stream. Kuo will present different challenges than Kyoto, she finally said. Golden eyes reflecting starlight. Political dynamics between devils, fallen angels, and other factions create complications beyond what you've experienced here. I figured as much, Naruto acknowledged. Azazel mentioned something about territory controlled by the Grimoire clan. Yasaka nodded. The young heiress, Rias Grimoire, maintains surprisingly harmonious relations with multiple factions. Though tensions always simmer beneath diplomatic courtesy. Her tales shifted, betraying subtle concern. Devils operate by different principles than yokai, contracts, obligations. Hierarchical power structures deeply embedded in their society. So basically like dealing with the Hyuga clan back home, Naruto joked, referencing one of Konoha's more traditionally structured families. The comparison startled a genuine laugh from Yasaka, a melodious sound rarely heard outside Kuno's presence. Your ability to find familiar parallels in extraordinary circumstances is remarkable, she observed. Amusement lingering in her expression. Though I suspect even your Hyuga clan lacked the particular combination of aristocratic pride and demonic power that characterizes devil nobility. You'd be surprised, Naruto countered with a grin, thinking particularly of Neji during their Chunin exam confrontation. Their conversation flowed with unexpected ease, shifty. From practical advice about navigating Kuo's supernatural politics to lighter exchanges about cultural differences between their worlds. Throughout, Naruto became increasingly aware of Yasaka not just as an instructor or political ally but as a person, someone whose centuries of existence hadn't diminished capacity for humor, curiosity, or connection. I'll miss our training sessions, he admitted. As their conversation reached a natural pause. You've taught me more in weeks than I learned in years of conventional instruction. Because you required integration rather than introduction, Yasaka replied thoughtfully. Your foundations were already exceptional. Chakra control developed through years of practical application, tactical thinking honed through actual combat, spiritual awareness expanded through sage training. What you needed was not new knowledge but connections between existing capabilities. Her assessment demonstrated deeper understanding of his abilities than Naruto had realized she possessed. You've been paying close attention, he noted, genuinely impressed. Of course, her golden eyes met his directly, something unreadable flickering in their depths. You Reaper, he sent a unique convergence of powers and perspectives. How could I not study such a phenomenon thoroughly? The way she said, phenomenon, carried undertones that suggested her interest might extend beyond purely academic or political considerations, a possibility that created unexpected warmth in Naruto's chest. Before he could explore this further, a subtle shift in the garden's ambient energy announced another presence. Ophis materialized from shadows that seemed to deepen momentarily before returning to normal darkness, her arrival less dramatic than her previous appearances but no less significant. The preparations are complete, she announced without preamble. Arrangements have been made with the Valkyrie. She will meet you upon arrival in Kuo. If she noticed the momentary tension her interruption created, she gave no sign. For entities like Ophis, human interactions with their emotional complexities remained largely theoretical concepts rather than lived experiences. Thank you, Naruto replied, rising from the bench and stretching, a deliberately human gesture that helped ground him amid cosmic concerns. I appreciate all the arrangements everyone's made. Necessity dictates cooperation, Ophis stated simply. Her gaze shifted between Naruto and Yasaka, something like calculation visible behind her impassive expression. The nine-tailed yokai's continued involvement proves beneficial to your development. This connection should be maintained. The blunt assessment might have been awkward had either Naruto or Yasaka been less self-possessed. As it was, they exchanged glances that contained equal parts amusement and resignation at Ophis's characteristic directness. I already plan to join him in Kuo next week, Yasaka confirmed with diplomatic grace. The yokai faction has interests in these developments beyond Kyoto's boundaries. Optimal, Ophis replied with a nod that somehow conveyed cosmic approval. She turned to Naruto, studying him with uncomfortable intensity. One final matter requires attention before your departure. Follow. Without waiting for response, she turned and walked toward the garden's rear wall, where shadows deepened beyond natural darkness, creating what appeared to be a doorway into absolute void. She paused at this threshold, glancing back expectantly. Naruto exchanged a questioning look with Yasaka, who appeared equally uncertain about this development. Where exactly are we going? He asked Ophis. The boundary, she replied cryptically. Where dimensions grow thin enough for limited contact. Great Red wishes to commune. Nike directly before your capabilities expand further. The prospect of meeting his draconic father, again, especially in some interdimensional boundary space rather than the physical world, sent simultaneous ripples of anticipation and apprehension through Naruto. Their previous encounter had been brief and cryptic, focused more on information transfer than genuine communication. Is this safe? Yasaka questioned, her tales betraying concern despite her composed expression. Define safe, Ophis countered with what might have been dry humor from anyone else. The dimensional boundary is inherently unstable. However, his unique composition allows traversal with minimal risk, provided I maintain the connection. That's not entirely reassuring, Naruto muttered, though he moved toward the shadowy doorway nonetheless. Adventure and risk had been constants throughout his life. This simply represented new variations on familiar themes. Yasaka rose gracefully, nine tails fanning with subtle protective intent. I should accompany you, she stated, authority rather than request in her tone. My experience with dimensional boundaries could prove useful. Ophis considered this briefly before nodding. Acceptable. The nine-tailed yokai's energy signature complements the stabilization matrix. With that cryptic approval, Ophis stepped into the darkness, disappearing entirely from conventional perception. Naruto followed without hesitation, trust established through weeks of interaction overcoming natural caution. Yasaka entered last, her golden energy briefly illuminating the threshold. Before darkness enveloped them completely. The transition defied description in human language. Not movement through space but realignment of existence itself, like being simultaneously everywhere and nowhere. Experiencing multiple potential realities without fully manifesting in any. When perception stabilized, they stood upon what appeared to be a crystalline platform suspended in absolute void. Above, below, around them stretched emptiness so complete it seemed almost solid, not merely absence of matter but absence of possibility itself. Yet within this nothingness swam colors that shouldn't exist, patterns that shifted according to laws beyond conventional physics. The dimensional gap, Ophis identified, her voice resonating differently here, more substantial, more present than in the physical world. The space between realities. Naruto felt his draconic heritage responding to this environment, power flowing more freely, senses extending beyond normal limitations. Here, in this liminal space, the artificial boundaries between his human and dragon natures seem thinner, more permeable. It feels familiar, he admitted, surprised by the absence of fear or disorientation. Like I've been here before. You existed here briefly after your creation, Ophis confirmed. Before the dimensional transfer to your human parents became necessary. Before Naruto could process this revelation. The void rippled with approaching presence, immense beyond comprehension yet somehow focused entirely upon their small platform. Color shifted predominantly toward crimson as great red Apro ached, not in the mountain-sized dragon form of their previous meeting but as concentrated essence, power distilled to its fundamental expression. The crystalline platform trembled as this presence manifested partially, taking form that resembled the humanoid appearance Great Red had previously assumed, yet less defined, more fluid in its boundaries. Like looking at a reflection in water rather than solid matter. My son grows stronger. Great Red's voice resonated directly in Naruto's consciousness rather than through conventional sound. The integration progresses well, thanks to Yasaka's training, Naruto acknowledged, gesturing toward the nine-tailed fox who stood with remarkable composure despite the overwhelming draconic presence. And Ophis's guidance. Great Red's attention shifted briefly to Yasaka, assessing her with eyes that contained universes of possibility. The yokai understands balance, he acknowledged with something like approval. A suitable instructor for one who must harmonize opposing forces. Yasaka bowed respectfully but without subservience, acknowledging cosmic power while maintaining her own dignity. Your offspring learns with remarkable speed, she offered, adapting to challenges that would overwhelm most beings. As expected, Great Red replied, attention returning to Naruto. The capacity to dream beyond limitations is my primary contribution to his nature. Ophis provided infinite potential. I provided infinite imagination to shape that potential. The casual discussion of his creation, like scientists discussing a particularly interesting experiment, might have bothered Naruto earlier. Now, with greater understanding of draconic nature, he recognized this apparent detachment as simply how such entities perceived reality, cosmic perspective. Necessarily different from human emotionality. I'm guessing you didn't bring me to this place just for a progress report, Naruto observed, direct as ever despite the extraordinary circumstances. What's really happening with Trihexa and these dimensional boundaries? Great Red's form shifted slightly, approval radiating at the directness of the question. Perception improves, he noted. Yes, the situation accelerates beyond initial projections. Trihexa's stirring creates cascading effects across multiple dimensions, including your shinobi world. How? Naruto demanded, concern for Konoha immediate and visceral. That world has no connection to Trihexa or biblical mythology. All realities connect at fundamental levels, Ophis interjected, her monotone carrying unusual urgency. Quote, what appears as separate worlds are branches from the same cosmic tree. Disturbances in root systems affect all branches eventually. The beast of the apocalypse threatens not one world but the structural integrity of reality itself. Great Red elaborated. Its awakening would cascade across dimensions, manifesting differently in each but ultimately destructive to all. This escalation of stakes, from protecting one world to preserving the multiverse itself, might have overwhelmed anyone with less experience facing seemingly impossible challenges. Naruto, however, simply processed this in format. Ion as additional parameters to an already complex problem. Then we need to prevent it from fully awakening, he concluded practically. Or find a way to reseal it more permanently. The original seals were designed by the biblical god. Yasaka noted, her scholarly knowledge evident. With his death, that specific divine power is unavailable for reinforcement. Unless, Great Red suggested, his form shifting with intensity of focus. One could access similar power from an alternate dimensional expression of the same fundamental entity. The implication struck Naruto with physical force. The Sage of Six Paths, he whispered, connecting disparate pieces of information. If he's the dimensional counterpart to the biblical god, then his power, or derivatives thereof, might affect Trihexa's seals, Ophis confirmed. particularly when channeled through a being who exists simultaneously in both dimensional expressions. Me, Naruto concluded, understanding his unique position with new clarity. That's why my creation was necessary, as you put it before. You knew this would happen eventually. Possibilities exist across infinite timelines, Great Red acknowledged. We perceived one where dimensional boundaries would weaken during your lifetime, requiring intervention from a being capable of transcending those boundaries. The revelation that his very existence had been engineered for cosmic intervention might have triggered existential crisis in some. For Naruto, whose life had been shaped by prophecy and destiny from birth, it represented simply another layer to an already complex identity. So how do I access the sage's power from here? He asked practically. Last time I spoke with him was during the war, and that was a one-time deal as far as I knew. Direct communication remains impossible while dimensional barriers persist, Ophis stated. However, you carry aspects of his power within your chakra system, particularly through modifications made during your confrontation with Kagaya Otsutsuki. This reference to one of Naruto's most difficult battles, against the primordial rabbit goddess who had nearly destroyed the shinobi world, demonstrated how closely the dragon gods had monitored his development despite apparent absence from his life. The modifications remain dormant in your current state, Great Red continued. To activate them fully requires completing the integration of your three power sources, human chakra, tailed beast energy, and draconic heritage. Which brings us to the purpose of this meeting, Ophis concluded. Your training with the yokai established foundation. Your research with the Valkyrie will provide technical understanding of dimensional boundaries. But complete integration requires catalyst, direct infusion of concentrated draconic essence to activate dormant potential. Great Red's form condensed further, crimson light gathering into a sphere of pure potential between his hands. This essence contains unfiltered CCESS to the dream, the infinite possibilities that constitute my fundamental nature. Simultaneously, Ophis extended her palm, above which formed a perfect sphere of absolute darkness, not merely absent CE of light but something more fundamental, the void from which all eventually emerges. And this contains direct connection to infinity, the endless cycle of creation and destruction that forms the foundation of existence, she stated. Together, they spoke in unison, they complete what began with your creation. Naruto looked between these manifestations of cosmic power with justified caution. What exactly will this do to me? Will I still be myself afterward? A question that revealed his deepest concern, not fear of power but fear of losing his essential nature, the hard-won identity foe. RGED through years of struggle and connection. Your human heart remains your anchor, Great Red assured him, understanding evident despite his cosmic perspective. This catalyst accelerates what will eventually occur naturally through continued development. Your fundamental self remains unchanged, simply more complete. The choice remains yours, Ophis added, surprising both Naruto and Yasaka with this acknowledgement of free will. Destiny suggests pathways but does not compel movement along them. The platform trembled beneath them, the dimensional gap itself fluctuating with increasing instability, visual representation of the cosmic forces straining against conventional boundaries. Time grows short, Great Red observed. The boundary weakens further with each passing moment. Naruto closed his eyes briefly, centering himself amid cosmic complexities. Within his mindscape, Kurama watched the proceedings with uncharacteristic solemnity. This transcends even my understanding of cosmic forces, the fox admitted. Yet I sense no deception in their proposal, unusual restraint from beings of such power. What do you think? Naruto asked his oldest companion directly. You'd be affected by this too. We have faced extinction together, battled gods, and rewrote supposed destiny, Kurama replied thoughtfully. Compared to those challenges, accepting our complete nature seems almost reasonable. The fox's wry humor in the face of cosmic transformation cemented Naruto's decision. Throughout his life, his greatest strength had never been power but adaptation, the ability to incorporate new elements without losing his essential self. All right, he agreed, stepping forward with characteristic determination. Let's complete this integration or catalyst or whatever you want to call it. But I'm doing this my way, to protect both worlds, not just fulfill some cosmic destiny. Something like pride radiated from both dragon gods at this assertion of autonomy within acceptance. The perfect embodiment of their complementary natures filtered through human determination. Extend your hands, Great Red instructed. One to each of us. Naruto complied, left hand reaching toward Ophis's void sphere, right toward Great Red's crimson potential. As his fingers approached these manifestations of cosmic principles, his body began responding instinctively, dragon aspects emerging without conscious control. Scales materializing across skin, eyes shifting to vertical slits that perceived beyond conventional light spectrum. Remember who you are. Yasaka's voice came from behind him, not instruction but affirmation. Reminder of the human connections that grounded him amid cosmic forces. His fingers made contact simultaneously with both spheres, void and dream, infinity and possibility. Power beyond comprehension flowed through these connection points, racing along pathways that had always existed within him yet remained partially dormant until this moment. The sensation defied description, neither pain nor pleasure but transcendence of both, consciousness expanding beyond conventional limitations while somehow remaining anchored in individual identity. Within his mindscape, Ma roared as the fox's own nature evolved in response, not consumed by draconic power but elevated through harmonious integration. Images flashed through Naruto's awareness faster than conscious process. Sing could track, glimpses across dimensions, fragments of possible futures, echoes of forgotten pasts. Through this kaleidoscopic torrent of information, certain visions crystallized with particular clarity. Konoha standing peaceful beneath a sunset sky suddenly fractured by rifts that poured malevolent energy into the unsuspecting village. Trihexa partially emerged from weakened seals, its 7 heads each targeting a different dimensional plane while Rizvam channeled the resulting chaos through artifacts of impossible power. A bridge forming between worlds, constructed not from physical matter but from harmonized energy that allowed safe passage between dimensions. And most distinctly, himself standing at the nexus point between realities, neither fully human nor fully dragon but perfect synthesis of both. Extending protection across dimensional boundaries that would otherwise collapse. As suddenly as it began, the infusion completed, cosmic essence fully integrated rather than merely contained. The spheres dissipated from the dragon god's hands, their purpose fulfilled. Naruto remained standing, though transformed in ways both subtle and profound. Physically, he appeared, largely unchanged, still recognizably himself with spiky blonde hair, whisker markings, and athletic build. Yet closer examination revealed permanent alterations, eyes blue but with vertical pupils that adjusted like a dragon's to perceive across multiple light spectrums, subtle scales visible beneath skin when viewed from certain angles, muscles denser, more efficient in their energy utilization. More significant were the internal changes. Chakra pathways expanded and reinforced to accommodate power that would have previously overwhelmed his system, neural connections restructured for processing information across dimensional boundaries, senses extended beyond conventional limitations into awareness of cosmic currents normally imperceptible to mortal beings. The integration is complete, Ophis observed with rare satisfaction. More successful than anticipated, because he accepted rather than resisted, Great Red noted. Incorporated rather than contained. Naruto took a deep breath, adjusting to his transformed awareness. Where previously he had perceived the dimensional gap as intimidating void, now he recognized intricate patterns flowing through apparent emptiness, currents of possibility connecting disparate realities, threads of potential extending in directions that couldn't be described in three-dimensional terms. This is intense, he admitted, voice steady despite the overwhelming sensory input. It's like seeing everything from multiple angles simultaneously. Draconic perception, Great Red confirmed. Though filtered through human consciousness, making it comprehensible rather than maddening. Yasaka approached cautiously, her 9 tails swaying with subdued wonder as she sensed the transformation. Your energy signature has stabilized completely, she observed. No fluctuation between sources, perfect harmony instead. Naruto turned toward her, momentarily startled by how differently he perceived her now, not merely as physical form but as complex RGY matrix extending beyond conventional boundaries, her 9 tails representing not just yokai power but dimensional anchors connecting her to multiple aspects of reality. It's like seeing the world with Sage Mode, Kurama's senses. And something entirely new all at once, he explained, struggling to articulate the experience. But without conflict between them. Within his mindscape, Kurama had undergone parallel transformation, the fox's form now shimmering with subtle draconic elements that enhanced rather than replaced his fundamental nature. Tails that once manifested purely as chakra constructs now incorporated aspects of dimensional energy, allowing manipulation of space-time boundaries previously inaccessible. Fascinating, the fox commented, examining these changes with scholarly interest. Our capabilities have expanded beyond conventional chakra limitations without losing our essential nature. The crystalline platform beneath them trembled more violently, the dimensional P's instability increasing as cosmic forces strained against weakening boundaries. You must return to physical reality, Great Red stated, his form already beginning to dissolve back into the fabric of the gap. Your presence here, especially with newly awakened abilities, accelerates dimensional fluctuations. We will communicate again when necessity dictates, Ophis added, her childlike form I'm largely losing definition around the edges. For now, complete your research with the Valkyrie. Understand the technical aspects of dimensional manipulation while adapting to your expanded capabilities. As the dragon gods began retreating into their natural domains, Naruto called out a final question. Wait. When Trihexa fully awakens, will I be able to protect both worlds? Create that bridge I saw in the vision. Great Red paused momentarily, his already dissipating form condensing briefly to reply. Possibility exists within infinite dreams. Actualization depends on choices yet unmade. Typical cryptic dragon answer, Naruto muttered, though with more affection than frustration. As the platform began dissolving beneath them, Ophis created a pathway back to physical reality, a corridor Hero void leading to the garden where their journey had begun. Return now, she instructed. The boundary cannot sustain your presence longer without permanent damage. Yasaka moved swiftly toward the opening, recognizing the urgency. Naruto followed, casting one final glance at the infinite possibilities swirling through the dimensional gap, a perspective forever changed by his completed integration. The transition back felt simultaneously instantaneous and eternal, conventional time reasserting itself awkwardly around beings who had temporarily existed beyond its limitations. When reality stabilized, they stood in the moonlit garden exactly where they had departed, though Naruto's internal sense suggested several hours had passed despite the stars remaining in identical positions. Time flows differently at dimensional boundaries, Yasaka explained, noting his confusion. What felt like extended interaction there translates to mere moments here. Naruto nodded, still adjusting to his transformed perception. The physical world appeared simultaneously more solid and more permeable than before, underlying energy currents visible beneath surface appearances, connections between NGLY separate objects evident as subtle threads of shared essence. This will take some getting used to, he admitted, rolling shoulders that felt simultaneously stronger and somehow lighter, as though gravity affected him differently now. Integration always requires adjustment period, came Ophis's voice, though her physical form remained absent, communication across dimensional boundaries rather than direct presence. The Valkyrie will help stabilize your perception through technical understanding. With this final cryptic guidance, her presence faded completely, leaving Naruto and Yasaka alone in the moonlit garden. For several moments, they stood in companionable silence, Yasaka patiently allowing Naruto to process his transformation while he gradually adjusted to perceiving her through his enhanced senses. You're handling this remarkably well, she finally observed, golden eyes studying him with scholarly interest tinged with something warmer. Most beings would be overwhelmed by such fundamental changes to their perception. Naruto smiled, the expression familiar yet somehow more resonant, as though even this simple gesture carried deeper significance through his transformed awareness. I've had practice with dramatic power upgrades. First Kurama's chakra, then Sage Mode, then Six Paths power. He shrugged. At least this time I'm not in the middle of a world-ending battle while figuring out the new abilities. Quote, Yasaka laughed softly, the sound creating beautiful patterns in Naruto's enhanced perception, ripples of golden energy extending outward to interact harmoniously with surrounding elements. Always finding the positive perspective, she noted with approval. A remarkably human trait despite your increasingly draconic nature. I think that's the point, Naruto replied thoughtfully, gazing upward at stars whose cosmic significance he now perceived more clearly. Not becoming more dragon or staying merely human, but finding the balance between them, creating something new that incorporates the strengths of both. Integration rather than competition, Yasaka agreed, nine tails swaying gently in the night breeze. A philosophy that applies beyond persona. Transformation to relationships between worlds, between factions, between beings of different natures. The philosophical implications hung between them, personal journey reflecting larger cosmic principles. Individual choices carrying significance beyond immediate circumstances. I should rest before tomorrow's journey, Naruto acknowledged reluctantly, aware of internal adjustments still processing through his transformed system. Even with all these cosmic upgrades, I still need sleep apparently. Another valuable human trait worth preserving, Yasaka observed with gentle humor. She hesitated briefly before adding, I look forward to seeing how your capabilities develop by the time I join you in Kuo. Your progress has been remarkable. Something in her tone suggested personal wrath, than merely professional interest, a development that created unexpected warmth despite cosmic complexities surrounding them. I'll miss your guidance, Naruto admitted, meeting her golden eyes directly. And not just the training. A week passes quickly, she replied softly. Especially for beings with expanded temporal perception. With this subtle reminder of his newly enhanced awareness, bowed formally yet somehow warmly before departing toward her own quarters, nine tails creating a graceful golden wake behind her. Alone in the garden, Naruto took a final moment to appreciate Kyoto's peaceful beauty, the harmony of natural and supernatural elements that had provided ideal environment for the first phase of his interdimensional journey. Quite the day, Kurama observed dryly. Own training flight techniques to cosmic transformation in interdimensional void. Never a dull moment with you. Would you have it any other way? Naruto countered with a grin, heading toward his quarters to prepare for tomorrow's journey. Truthfully, no, the fox admitted with surprising candor. Though I maintain my right to complain about the constant world-saving responsibilities. There Bant, continued internally as Naruto completed practical preparations for departure, checking supplies, reviewing transportation details, securing communications devices. Throughout these mundane activities, his mind processed the extraordinary transformation and its implications for challenges ahead. Whatever awaited in Kuo, dimensional research with Rosweiss, confrontation with Rizevim's forces, eventual battle against Trihexa itself, Naruto would face it with the same determination that had defined him throughout his life, now enhanced but not fundamentally changed by his completed draconic integration. As he finally settled into meditation rather than conventional sleep, his transformed physiology requiring different restoration methods, Naruto's consciousness expanded outward, briefly took distant Konoha across dimensional boundaries. Though he couldn't yet establish clear communication, he sensed the village's continued peace, friends living their lives unaware of cosmic dangers gathering beyond their perception. I'll find a way to protect both worlds, he promised silently, determination crystallizing into absolute certainty. Not because of prophecy or cosmic destiny, but because that's who I am, who I've always chosen to be. With this resolution firm in his transformed consciousness, Naruto Uzumaki, shinobi of Konoha, Jinchuriki of Kurama, son of human heroes and dragon gods. Bridge between dimensions, prepared for the next phase of a journey that would ultimately determine the fate of multiple worlds. Morning arrived with golden clarity over Kuo town, sunlight illuminating a cityscape that blended modern architecture with traditional elements, technological advancement with supernatural undercurrents. Here, in territory nominally controlled by devil aristocracy shared with multiple factions through careful treaties, boundaries between mundane and magical remained particularly permeable. The perfect environment for dimensional research. Naruto arrived via conventional transportation, high-speed train rather than dramatic dimensional portal, a deliberate choice to maintain low profile while adjusting to his enhanced perception. Each passing hour since the integration had brought improved control, sensory input that initially threatened overwhelm now categorized and filtered more efficiently. Azazel's driver, the young devil swordsman Kiba, met him at the station with the same courteous efficiency as during his previous visit to Kuo. Though this time, Naruto noted with interest how the devil's eyes widened momentarily upon sensing his transformed energy signature. Uzumaki-san, Kiba greeted with a formal bow that nonetheless conveyed genuine respect rather than mere protocol. Welcome back to Kuo. You've changed since our last meeting. Integrated is the technical term apparently, Naruto replied with characteristic directness. Long story involving interdimensional voids and dragon parents. To the young devil's credit, he accepted his extraordinary explanation with equanimity. Of course, the supernatural world rarely provides simple narratives. He gestured toward a sleek black vehicle waiting nearby. Azazel-sama has arranged accommodations at his research facility rather than conventional housing. He thought you might appreciate environment designed for beings of unusual power. Thoughtful of him, Naruto acknowledged, appreciating the fallen angel's practical consideration. Through his enhanced perception, he noted subtle protective spells woven into the vehicle's structure, magical engineering designed to contain energy fluctuations while providing privacy from supernatural surveillance. As they drove through Kuo's busy streets, Naruto observed how differently he now perceived the city compared to his first visit. Beyond physical infrastructure, he could discern underlying ley lines, channels of natural energy flowing beneath urban development, creating nodes of power at intersections. More fascinating were the traces of different supernatural factions, devil magic predominating in certain districts, fallen angel influences in others, and occasional signatures of angels, yokai, and other mythological beings, creating complex tapestry of overlapping territories. The town seems peaceful enough, Naruto observed, considering how many different supernatural factions apparently share the space. Kiba nodded, navigating through traffic with practiced ease. Kuo represents something of an experiment in supernatural coexistence, initially devil territory that gradually opened to other factions through treaties negotiated by Rias Grimori and her brother Searzex. Not without tensions, of course, but functional cooperation nonetheless. Reminds me of the alliance between shinobi villages after the war, Naruto commented. Finding yet another parallel between worlds. Different groups with historic conflicts finding common ground through shared challenges. An apt comparison, Kiba agreed, showing genuine interest. Azazel-sama mentioned your world recently concluded a major conflict. Our factions similarly found greater cooperation following the Great War between angels, fallen angels, and devils. Their conversation continued with exchanging perspectives on post-war rebuilding and faction politics, Naruto providing insights from shinobi experience while Kiba offered valuable context about Kuo's supernatural dynamics. Through this practical discussion, Naruto gained clearer understanding of the environment he would navigate while conducting dimensional research. Their destination proved unexpected. Not the modernist laboratory complex Naruto had imagined based on Azazel's scientific reputation, but a traditional Japanese estate set within expansive grounds at the city's periphery. Ancient trees surrounded buildings that blended classical architecture with subtle modern modifications, protective barriers visible to Naruto's enhanced perception layered like translucent domes over the entire property. Azazel-sama prefers working in environments with established spiritual resonance, Kiba explained as they passed through outer security measures. This estate dates to Heian period, though substantially modified for current purposes. The vehicle stopped before the main building, where two figures awaited their arrival, Azazel himself, casual as ever in modern clothing that somehow managed to suggest his fallen angel nature despite its conventional appearance. Beside him, a young woman whose rigid posture and formal attire immediately identified her as someone who approached life with methodical precision. The prodigal dragon returns, Azazel greeted with characteristic informal charm as Naruto exited the vehicle. His scientific curiosity immediately evident as he studied the transformed energy signature. And significantly upgraded, I see. Ophis and Red finally completed the integration process. You could tell that just by looking. Naruto questioned, somewhat disconcerted by the fallen angel's perceptiveness. Looking, scanning, measuring with 17 different supernatural detection systems, Azazel clarified with a grin, gesturing toward subtle instrumentation incorporated into what appeared to be decorative garden elements. You're putting out energy readings that would make most high-tier supernatural beings envious. Before Naruto could respond to this casual invasion of privacy, The young woman beside Azazel stepped forward with a formal bow that managed to convey both politeness and impatience simultaneously. Rossweiss, she introduced herself. Silver hair caught in a practical bun, intelligent eyes assessing him with scholarly intensity. Former Valkyrie of Asgard, currently researching dimensional boundary mechanics under insufferably disorganized conditions. This last comment directed pointedly toward Azazel, who merely shrugged with unrepentant amusement. Creative genius requires flexible working environment, he countered before turning back to Naruto. Rossweiss brings extensive knowledge of Norse world tree cosmology to our dimensional research, perspective distinct from biblical or draconic frameworks. The Valkyrie's professional demeanor softened slightly as she addressed Naruto directly. Your arrival precipitated breakthrough in several theoretical models. The energy signature generated during your dimension Al transition provided data points previously unavailable through conventional research methods. Happy to help, Naruto replied with characteristic optimism, though it wasn't exactly intentional on my part. Few significant scientific advancements result from intentional dimensional disruption, Rossweiss noted with dry humor that suggested greater personality depth beneath her formal exterior. Controlled experimentation follows observed phenomena rather than preceding it. Azazel clapped his hands together with undisguised enthusiasm. And speaking of experimentation, we should proceed to the research facility. I've prepared comprehensive scanning equipment to document your transformation, along with testing chambers for practical demonstration of enhanced abilities. Perhaps allow our guest to settle in before subjecting him to invasive examination protocols. Rossweiss suggested with pointed politeness that barely concealed exasperation with her colleague's enthusiasm. Right, Azazel conceded. Though scientific curiosity remained evident in his expression. Kiba, please show Naruto to his quarters. We'll reconvene in the main laboratory he glanced questioningly toward Rossweiss. 2 hours, she stated firmly, sufficient time for proper orientation and basic refreshment. As Kiba led him toward guest accommodations, Naruto reflected on these initial impressions of his new research partners. Azazel's brilliant but somewhat chaotic approach contrasting with Rossweiss's methodical precision, their complementary methods creating productive tension rather than dysfunctional conflict. They've been working together for several months on dimensional boundary research, Kiba explained as they traversed elegantly appointed corridors. Initially separate, projects that merged when anomalies began appearing with increasing frequency throughout Kuo. Anomalies, Naruto prompted, immediately connecting this information with Ophis's warnings about weakening dimensional boundaries. Temporary spatial distortions, objects manifesting from seemingly nowhere, occasionally beings appearing briefly before disappearing again, Kiba elaborated. Nothing as dramatic as your arrival, but concerning patterns nonetheless. His assigned quarters reflected the estate's overall aesthetic, traditional Japanese design incorporating subtle supernatural modifications for comfort and security. Most notably, the space included a meditation chamber specifically designed for beings with exceptional power levels, protective seals incorporated directly into architectural elements. This should provide suitable environment for recovery and adaptation, Kiba suggested, gesturing toward various amenities. The barriers automatically adjust to contain energy fluctuate ions without restricting normal activities. It's perfect, Naruto assured him, appreciating both the practical accommodations and the thoughtfulness behind them. And exactly what I need while adjusting to these new capabilities. Left alone to settle in, Naruto took advantage of the meditation chamber to continue stabilizing his transformed perception. The integration catalyst from Great Red and Ophis had completed the fundamental process, but conscious control required ongoing refinement, particularly regarding dimensional awareness that occasionally threatened to overwhelm conventional senses. Your adaptation proceeds efficiently, Kurama observed from their shared mindscape, where the fox continued exploring his own parallel transformations. Though certain aspects remain unpredictable, the dimensional perception particularly requires conscious regulation. Tell me about it, Naruto agreed, carefully practicing techniques for filtering sensory input. It's like having Sage Mode activated permanently, but with extra dimensions thrown in for fun. The 2 hours passed quickly through this practical adaptation work. When Kiba returned to escort him to the laboratory, Naruto had achieved significantly improved control, energy signature stabilized, perceptual filters functioning effectively, physical manifestations of draconic heritage responding to conscious direction rather than emotional fluctuation. The research facility itself defied conventional categorization, neither purely scientific laboratory nor magical workshop but fascinating hybrid incorporating elements from multiple supernatural traditions. Norse runes coexisted with biblical sigils and draconic inscriptions, cutting-edge technology seamlessly integrated with artifacts of evident antiquity. "Welcome to Interdimensional Central," Azazel announced with proprietary pride as Naruto entered. The fallen angel stood beside complex instrumentation that hummed with both electrical and magical energy. We violate fundamental cosmic boundaries in controlled experimental conditions. What Azazel-sama means, Rossweiss clarified with pointed professionalism, is that we study dimensional mechanics. Through observation and theoretical modeling, with minimal direct manipulation of boundary conditions. Their good-natured academic rivalry created surprisingly comfortable atmosphere despite the facility's intimidating complexity. As they provided orientation tour, Naruto observed how the research space had been organized into distinct functional areas, observation equipment occupying one section, theoretical modeling another, practical testing facilities yet another. Most intriguing was a central chamber where multiple energy types converged, what Azazel described as dimensional resonance Ma. PPing station, designed to visualize connections between different reality planes. "This is where your arrival first registered," he explained, gesturing toward instruments still displaying baseline readings from weeks earlier. The energy signature was so distinctive we initially thought Great Red himself might be manifesting in physical reality. Which created considerable alarm among supernatural factions, Rossweiss added dryly. Until we determined the signature, while draconic in origin, contained human and yokai elements suggesting hybrid nature rather than primordial dragon. Their technical explanation continued, terminology increasingly specialized yet made accessible through Rossweiss's methodical clarity and Azazel's intuitive analogies. Throughout, Naruto found himself understanding concepts that would have been incomprehensible prior to his transformation, draconic heritage providing instinctive comprehension of dimensional mechanics while human perspective allowed practical application. So in simple terms, he summarized after particularly complex explanation of boundary mechanics, dimensional barriers are weakening because trihex's stirring creates resonance patterns that disrupt normal separation between reality planes. Exactly, Azazel confirmed, evident pleasure at Naruto's quick grasp of fundamental principles. The beast of the apocalypse exists outside conventional dimensional frameworks. Its awakening affects not just this world but adjacent realities connected through underlying cosmic structure. Including your shinobi world, Rossweiss confirmed, pulling up visual representation that depicted multiple reality planes as interconnected spheres, disturbance patterns rippling between them. Based on energy signature analysis from your arrival, we've identified probable connection points between dimensions. The visualization showed Naruto's home dimension, represented as sphere containing recognizable energy patterns matching Chakra systems, connected to the DXD world through subtle filaments of resonant energy. More concerning were disturbance patterns originating from central point representing trihex's sealed location, ripples extending outward to affect all connected realities. Our research focuses on understanding these connection points, Rossweiss continued, professional demeanor momentarily softening as she recognized Naruto's concern for his home world. With sufficient knowledge, we might theoretically establish controlled pathways between dimensions, communication initially, perhaps eventually transport. That's exactly what I need, Naruto confirmed, hope rising at this alignment with his own objectives. I saw a possible future where dimensional bridge formed between worlds, something that could allow protection to extend across realities. Quote, his description of vision experienced during integration catalyst immediately captured both researchers' attention, Azazel's eyes lighting with scientific excitement while Rossweiss's analytical mind clearly processed implications with methodical precision. Draconic precognition, Azazel identified immediately. Great Red's influence manifesting through temporal perception beyond conventional limitations. Combined with Ophis's inherent understanding of dimensional boundaries, Rossweiss added thoughtfully. The integration provided not just enhanced abilities but specific insight relevant to current crisis. What followed was intensive collaboration combining their theoretical knowledge with Naruto's practical experience and instinctive understanding. Through careful scanning, testing, and analytical discussion, a research framework emerged, approach that would utilize Naruto's unique nature as dimensional bridge to develop techniques for Ross reality communication and eventually transport. The process requires multiple phases, Rossweiss explained, mapping out research plan with characteristic thoroughness. First, establishing Basel in measurements of your dimensional resonance patterns, then identifying corresponding frequencies in your home world, finally developing techniques to consciously project communication across identified connection points. And throughout this process, Azazel added with undisguised enthusiasm, we'll document how your draconic abilities interact with different magical systems, valuable data regardless of dimensional research outcomes. Quote, as the planning session concluded, Naruto found himself genuinely optimistic despite the complexity of challenges ahead. In Rossweiss and Azazel, he had found research partners whose combined expertise provided technical framework for accomplishing what instinct told him was possible, creating bridges between worlds that would allow protection of both. We should begin baseline measurements immediately, Rossweiss suggested, professional efficiency reasserting itself after theoretical discussion. While your integration remains recent enough to capture transition signatures, the testing process proved fascinating if somewhat tedious. Hours of careful measurement using instruments that detected energy patterns beyond conventional perception, Akasi. Only supplemented by Naruto consciously channeling specific power combinations to establish comparison baselines. Throughout, Rossweiss worked with impressive precision, each measurement meticulously documented. Each observation categorized according to rigorous organizational system. Despite her formal exterior, Naruto detected genuine passion for knowledge beneath professional demeanor, scholar. Lee dedication not unlike Sakura's approach to medical research or Shikamaru's analytical problem-solving. Your energy patterns are remarkably harmonic, she observed during brief break between testing sequences. Most hybrid beings demonstrate conflict between different power sources, visible as interference patterns in spectral analysis. Integration rather than mere combination, Naruto explained, recalling Yasaka's terminology. Thanks largely to specific training with the nine-tailed fox of Kyoto before the catalyst completed the process. Yasaka-sama, Rossweiss acknowledged with evident respect. Her reputation extends beyond yokai circles. I look forward to collaborating when she joins our research team next week. This casual confirmation that plans continued proceeding despite his transition from Kyoto to Kuo reassured Naruto, evidence of coordination between factions that transcended territorial considerations in face of common threat. As testing continued through afternoon and into evening, Naruto observed subtle shifts in Rossweiss's professional demeanor, initial scientific detachment gradually yielding to genuine curiosity about his experiences and background. During equipment recalibration, conversation turned toward comparative discussion of their respective worlds. The concept of chakra as standardized energy system accessible to all humans through training fascinates me, she admitted. Silver hair escaping practical bun as she worked with complex instrumentation. In our world, humans capable of accessing supernatural power represent exceptions rather than norm, usually through bloodline, divine blessing, or artificial enhancement. It wasn't always that way in my world either, Naruto explained, recalling historical knowledge shared by Hagoromo during their momentous encounter. The Sage of Six Paths deliberately shared chakra knowledge to create common ground between people, power system that could unite rather than divide. A philosophical PP roach to power distribution that most supernatural factions here would find revolutionary, Rossweiss observed thoughtfully. Perhaps even threatening to established hierarchies. This observation revealed more about her personal perspective than might appear on surface, suggestion of reformist thinking beneath formal adherence to established protocols. Their discussion continued through increasingly complex comparisons of power systems, magical theory, and dimensional mechanics, technical conversation gradually incorporating personal perspectives and experiences that transformed professional collaboration into genuine connection. As testing concluded for the day, Rossweiss's formal demeanor had noticeably relaxed, scholarly interest expanded to include genuine curiosity about Naruto as person rather than merely research subject. When she finally set aside final instrumentation with reluctant acknowledgement of necessary rest period, their conversation had established foundation for PR. Professional relationship tinged with personal connection. Tomorrow we'll analyze today's baseline data and begin designing protocols for directional resonance testing, she explained as they exited the laboratory complex. Night had fallen during their intensive work, estate grounds now illuminated by combination of conventional lighting and subtle magical illumination. With sufficient calibration, we might attempt preliminary communication protocols within days rather than weeks. That's faster progress than I expected, Naruto admitted, genuinely impressed by her methodical efficiency. Dimensional research typically proceeds at glacial pace, she acknowledged with hint of pride beneath professional modesty. However, your unique nature provides unprecedented opportunity for breakthrough. The integration catalyst essentially transformed you into living dimensional conduit, capabilities that would require centuries of magical development to replicate artificially. As they reached the junction where paths diverged toward respective quarters, Rossweiss hesitated briefly before adding, "Your cooperation today was exceptionally helpful. Most beings of significant power demonstrate impatience with methodical research protocols. Coming from someone of her precise professional standards, this constituted high praise indeed." Naruto accepted it with characteristic warmth, recognizing the genuine sentiment beneath formal expression. "I've learned that when dealing with complicated problems, sometimes the best thing I can contribute is following instructions from people who actually understand the technical details," he replied with self-deprecating humor. "Besides, your research might help protect both our worlds, worth a little patience." Something in this straightforward declaration seemed to resonate with Rossweiss, her formal expression softening into genuine smile that transformed her appearance completely, scholarly severity giving way to unexpected warmth. "Rest well, Naruto Uzumaki," she said, using his name directly for first time rather than formal research subject designation. "Tomorrow promises significant progress." With this understated encouragement, she departed toward staff quarters, silver hair catching moonlight as she walked with characteristic purposeful stride. Returning to his assigned accommodation, Naruto found himself reflecting on these initial research experiences with unexpected optimism. Despite technical complexity beyond his conventional understanding, instinctive comprehension provided by draconic heritage combined with practical problem-solving approach had established productive foundation with his research partners. "The Valkyrie's methodical approach complements your intuitive understanding," Kurama observed thoughtfully. "Her technical knowledge provides framework for channeling your natural capabilities effectively." "She reminds me a bit of Sakura," Naruto replied as he settled into meditation posture within specially designed chamber. Brilliant but sometimes hiding behind professional formality as protective mechanism. The fox's rumbling amusement suggested agreement with this assessment. "You continue electing complicated individuals with exceptional abilities. A consistent pattern across worlds." Before Naruto could respond to this observation, his enhanced senses detected dramatic shift in NT energy patterns surrounding the estate, protective barriers suddenly intensifying as external pressure registered against outer perimeters. Rising immediately, he extended awareness outward through newly stabilized dimensional perception. What he discovered sent immediate surge of adrenaline through his system, multiple energy signatures converging on facility perimeter, unmistakable magical form. Asians preparing for coordinated assault. Chaos Brigade had found him. Again, unlike the Kyoto attack's straightforward infiltration approach, this assault demonstrated greater tactical sophistication. Magical dampening fields deployed to minimize advanced detection, coordinated strike teams positioned around facility perimeter, dimensional. ____. The end. Thank you for watching this video. Please be sure to subscribe to our channel and like this video.